Hey, my beloved bros, I think I'm getting sick, maybe the flu or something. I think I'll be offline for the next few days until I fully recover, so don't be surprised if I can't upload videos regularly on the channels. For now, just enjoy yourselves. News spread at a dizzying pace in the survival circle. The wooden raft warriors swarmed in such massive numbers that anyone who saw them would be terrified. Only the people sitting in the meeting room understood perfectly well just how critical the current situation was. Brother Lu, the current count of wooden rafts is 11,852, totaling 49,687 people. And this number is still rising continuously. We estimate that by tomorrow morning, it could very well exceed the 20,000 mark. After reading the statistics, Zhang Long's face stiffened. It was hard to tell if he was laughing or crying. His expression was indescribably twisted. The entire meeting room sank into silence as that number echoed. Everyone fell quiet. 5,000 rafts were still within a manageable range, but right now, things had completely spiraled out of control. If it really reached 20,000 rafts by tomorrow, over 100,000 survivors, that scale would be no different from the population of a small county in the civilized era. At this point, it was no longer a question of whether to abandon them or not. Rather, if they abandoned them and got found out, a riot would absolutely break out. Before they could even fight the alien races, they would be overthrown by these very survivors. Those people, pushed to a dead end, would undoubtedly vent all their fury on the ones who abandoned them. Brother Lu, what are you laughing at? If you're too sad, just cry. Don't force it. We're all brothers here. No one's going to laugh at you. After Zhang Long finished reading the data, the meeting room fell into absolute silence. But no one expected that Lu Yongyi, who had been as silent as a rock from the beginning, would suddenly burst into maniacal laughter. He laughed hysterically, laughed as if a burden had been lifted, laughed without any restraint. It was a complete departure from the man of steel image he had always maintained in front of everyone. Everyone was stunned, worried that he had suffered a mental breakdown and was on the verge of snapping. But the very next second, under everyone's shocked gazes, Lu Yongyi sprang to his feet. Tears were still streaming down his face, but his voice boomed like thunder. Look at you all, acting as weak as little bunnies. 20,000, huh? Before tomorrow, gather 25,000 for me. Don't let a single raft slip through. Population growth, at a certain stage, is indeed a delicacy that makes people reluctant to let go. But at another stage, it turns into a lethal poison that kills without spilling a drop of blood. When Lu Yongyi's excited shout echoed, none of the people sitting in the cabin voiced any opposition, nor did anyone show agreement. A clear look of regret appeared on everyone's faces. They glanced at each other, then silently shook their heads. Such a great leader. Has he really gone mad after reaching this point? Yeah, in that moment, witnessing Lu Yongyi's behavior, no one truly believed in him anymore. Even the captains who had firmly supported him couldn't hide their disappointment and confusion. Deep down, they seemed to have completely lost hope for the future. In a situation that had spiraled so far out of control, their large ship was just a slightly sturdier ant. In the face of a true disaster, it was practically useless. However, just a dozen seconds later, when the crazed smile on Lu Yongyi's face gradually faded, replaced by undisguised confidence, the entire cabin was instantly shaken. Brother Lu, don't tell me you're actually serious about this? Are we really going to keep taking in those drifters? Our front line has already stretched to 4 kilometers. If we take in more, it'll expand to 20 or 30 kilometers. By then, we won't even be able to defend it if we tried. Brother Lu, think this through. During the final tsunami wave, the few of us might be able to hold on using the energy-absorbing gel. But those ordinary civilians, they're practically dead meat. With this number of people, if we try hard, we can still save a good chunk of them. But if it multiplies by 3 or 5 times, unless you become God Su, this is a dead end with no way out. One person spoke up, then another chimed in. At this point, no one was pretending to give up anymore. It was like the broken window effect. When the number of rafts was small, everyone thought taking them in was impossible. But upon realizing that in 3 days, the number of rafts could skyrocket to 30,000, or even 50,000, the current 10,000 suddenly seemed acceptable. People even started brainstorming ways to deal with it. At this moment, Lu Yongyi stood in the middle of the meeting room. He wasn't in a rush to argue back. He simply raised his hand, signaling for everyone to quiet down. Thanks to the authority he had built up over the past few days, the dozen or so captains immediately calmed down. The cabin fell silent, leaving only the sound of heavy, pressure-filled breathing. All eyes focused on him, waiting for his next trump card. What if the final day of the tsunami doesn't come, but ends right before that? He didn't answer directly. He just stared at the chat box on the control panel while casually tossing out a question. That soft sentence struck like a bolt of lightning, sending the entire room into an uproar. The final day of the tsunami isn't coming. Everyone instantly lost their composure. Despite trying to hold back, shock and disbelief were clearly written on every face. If they categorized the current threats at sea, being surrounded by alien races and the war of the three races was a level 1 threat. But the final day of the tsunami was a level 5, maybe even level 10 threat. According to the forecast, the 7th day of the disaster would be 10 times stronger than the first. Waves hundreds of meters high, free falling into the sea, would create a terrifying impact force. If it was just once or twice, they could survive using the remaining energy-absorbing gel. But this time, the falling waves would last for 12 hours, over 200 consecutive impacts. With that level of destruction, even large ships would struggle to stay intact. As for wooden rafts, a single crash would shatter them into splinters. That was exactly why the captains panicked so much when they saw the number of rafts around the ship far exceeding their post-disaster capacity. But if the final day wasn't coming, looking at the sea breeze-tanned faces, then turning to the man standing in the middle of the room with his brow completely relaxed, everyone instantly understood Liu Yongyi's earlier intentions. Brother Liu, could it be? On that final day, we're planning to fight a battle? Zhang Long spoke up, his voice laced with both doubt and astonishment. The man who had once belonged to the abandonment faction had completely changed his mind. A bold hypothesis quickly formed in his head. Yes, Liu Yongyi nodded. I've received accurate intel. And in 2 hours, all our official ships will also receive orders from the higher-ups. We've found a way to resolve this tsunami. But the price is, we have to fight. The war of the three races. No more hiding. After sending the final message, Liu Yongyi closed the control panel. An unprecedented hardness appeared on his face. His fists were clenched tight, but this time, they weren't trembling from anxiety. Instead, a surging killing intent radiated from him, so strong that anyone could clearly feel it. In the civilized era, generals often had a gentle, approachable demeanor. But if you looked back at wartime footage, you'd see their eyes were always brimming with undisguised sharpness. At this very moment, Liu Yongyi was exactly like that. Humans had never feared strong enemies, nor had they ever backed down in the face of hardship. And the people of Huaxia, even less so. When facing a natural disaster, for most people, it's something beyond imagination, bringing only confusion and despair. But when told that the target is no longer a vague natural disaster, but tangible alien races, and that simply wiping them out means victory, that shift in target didn't make people panic. On the contrary, it brought an unimaginable sense of thrill and excitement. The fighting blood buried deep in the veins of the Huaxia people had never faded despite half a century of peace. Less than 5 minutes later, as the captains successively received official notifications from the higher-ups, the gloomy atmosphere in the meeting room instantly ignited. Liu Yongyi didn't interrupt anyone, letting them absorb and digest the information. Right after, he suddenly waved his hand at the empty space. A large map, about 1.5 meters long and over 70 centimeters wide, materialized and dropped onto the table. Feeling a bit of heartache, he pulled out 3 blank sheets of paper from inside, leaving only the last one. After confirming there was only 1 sheet left, Liu Yongyi made a few adjustments, and an inkwash painting gradually appeared on the paper. After observing for a moment, everyone finally understood. The red dots represented humans, while the black dots were the alien races. In terms of numbers, humans had an overwhelming advantage, reaching up to 70,000. Meanwhile, the alien races on the opposing side barely numbered 10,000 at most. But in terms of formation, the alien races held an absolute advantage, surrounding the 70,000 humans inside like a tightly sealed iron sack. Brother Liu, don't tell me, we're fighting right now? Zhang Long, who owned the second strongest ship after the Daiyuan, understood the entire situation the moment he looked at the map. Just like the last time when they discussed abandonment, this time, when mentioning an attack, his voice also revealed killing intent. Fight! Liu Yongyi swept his gaze across the room, then slammed his hand on the table. Since it's already confirmed to be the war of the three races, keeping those beasts around will only cause more trouble. We might as well strike first while it's not too late. This time, no one objected. All the captains in the cabin immediately relied on the data from the map and began discussing combat strategies. Liu Yongyi, Su Mo, I have received all the information. Liu Yongyi, I've forwarded everything to our Longqi shelter. They are presenting it to Director Long. I'll notify you as soon as there's news. Liu Yongyi, Director Long has approved your proposal and is currently coordinating with other major shelters to unify the plan. Liu Yongyi, the plan has been approved. A total of 694,800 official ships currently at sea have started receiving notifications and will act according to the plan. Liu Yongyi, it is estimated that within 2 days, we will complete over 80% of the personnel assembly. Liu Yongyi, the detailed division of the war zones will be completed in the next 4 hours. Once done, I will send you the zone map. Liu Yongyi, Su Mo, you've helped humanity right on time, like rain after a drought. Director Long and the leaders of the major shelters are incredibly grateful. After this battle, the human destiny community won't let you suffer any losses. Worthy rewards will be given. By the way, God Su is mighty. I stayed up all night. When I woke up, it was already 11 a.m. in the wasteland. The first thing I did was open the control panel and read all the messages Liu Yongyi had sent. 6 messages, with less than half an hour between each. It was clear that in this strength-worshipping world, the major human-run shelters had completely caught up with the urgent pace of the times. In just 1 hour, all official ships on the wasteland sea received their orders. Over the next 2 days, humanity would enter a life-and-death race against the alien races. As long as the wooden raft warriors could coordinate with the large ships, even if they lacked the firepower to destroy the alien races, they would at least have a chance to survive. While the alien races hadn't yet gathered large-scale forces, the human clusters would remain safe. When the Great War truly erupted, even if humanity had to pay the price in casualties, it was a price everyone was ready to accept. According to the data model calculations, the number of people who could ultimately reach the new continent would still be around 40%. A highly optimistic number. Wasteland time, just after March, the 65th day of humanity's survival journey. After 2 months of struggling, the concept of Earth time had gradually faded from the memories of most survivors. For many, they didn't even care what date it was anymore. They only knew that this was the 4th day since the tsunami disaster began. Since the disaster refreshed at 8 a.m., each tsunami wave had extended by half an hour. It was now up to an hour and a half per wave. The rest period had also increased to half an hour, giving survivors a little more time to recover. But unlike the past 3 days, today, the wind in the World Channel had started to shift. Starting at 12 p.m., the official organizations that had vanished for the past 2 months suddenly appeared out of nowhere, standing before everyone once again. Not only that, but they also brought news that lifted the spirits of all survivors. Full-scale assembly. Around 700,000 official ships from government organizations, scattered across the wasteland, would begin gathering all survivors within their respective areas. According to the zoning plan, the entire map had been divided into 1,500 different zones. As long as they followed the instructions and reached the designated points, humans would have the chance to join forces and overcome the disaster. It had to be said, there was a reason the government had stayed hidden for so long. If they had stepped up to stabilize the situation on the very first day they arrived in the wasteland, calling for humanity to unite and work together, that call would indeed have had a positive effect in the short term. But over a long period of 2 months, when the government organizations themselves had to start from scratch, no supplies, no logistics, that call would have been nothing but a dose of poison injected straight into the survivors' trust. The final result would only be one: their credibility collapsing, their voices silenced. Therefore, they had always been waiting. Waiting for a perfect opportunity. Waiting for a chance powerful enough to turn the tide and flip the board. And now, in their eyes, That moment had arrived. Battle Zone 816. According to the old map, this place was located at the edge of Zone 8. Just by traveling a few hundred kilometers, they could head straight into Zone 5, then approach Zone 3. Right at the central border of Zone 5, the government had set up a massive assembly point. 3 p.m., right when the tsunami began to surge. Compared to 3 days ago, today's waves were exponentially more violent. The sea surface trembled continuously like someone with Parkinson's, rising and falling. Occasionally, waves tens of meters high would silently swell up and then crash down heavily onto the water. But for the survivors, today was a much easier day to breathe. In just half a day of assembly, not only did large and small ships link together into clusters, but the wooden raft warriors also began to unleash their creativity. They brought out ropes, homemade chains, animal sinews, and highly flexible materials they had prepared before setting sail. Then, they jumped into the water, securing raft to raft, linking every single one into a unified mass. At first, 10 or 100 rafts didn't seem like anything special. People just found it novel, walking onto each other's rafts like visiting neighbors, somewhat relieving the loneliness of drifting at sea for weeks. But when the number of linked rafts surpassed 1,000, quantity completely transformed into quality. Linked raft, normal. Description: formed by over 1,000 rafts through fixed links, creating a special type of vessel. Possesses its own upgrade path. Upgrade Path 1. Once the rafts are secured, all raft owners can contribute materials and disaster points to upgrade the vessel's materials. Note: when the rafts detach, all upgrades will be evenly distributed to each individual raft. Upgrade Path 2. Upon reaching Excellent Tier, unlocks the first evolution, Sea Oasis. Upgrade Path 3. Upon reaching Exquisite Tier, unlocks the second evolution, Mobile Island. Next upgrade path. For those with only isolated rafts, aside from a few old foxes like Sun Xian, who still retained a good amount of points and materials, over 70% of the rest were lacking in everything. But now, everyone just needed to pitch in a little. Those with materials gave materials, those with points gave points. The material quality of the linked rafts instantly transformed, and the binding ropes were upgraded to a completely different level of durability. On the constantly shaking sea, the massive raft, with its expansive surface area, floated like a giant leaf on the water, astonishingly stable. The wooden raft warriors, who were once considered a burden, after linking up, were in no way inferior to small ships in terms of combat capability. In fact, in terms of comfort, they even surpassed large ships. The tsunami crashed down, but no one was cowering and praying like before. People walked around on the massive raft. Though still a bit anxious, they were calm enough to observe the situation. Compared to the fierce winds and raging waves outside, this change made them extremely excited. Everyone had their eyes glued to the sea outside the linked zone, wanting to witness firsthand the endurance of this raft upgraded with tons of resources. Hey, look at that. Look at what that is, guys. Mother of God, what the hell is that? A loud shout rang out, instantly drawing everyone's attention. Two middle-aged men standing at the edge of the linked raft pointed down at the sea, their faces as pale as if they had just seen a ghost. In that split second, they seemed to have seen a ship, something that only appeared on TV in the civilized era, gliding rapidly beneath the water. But completely unlike the movies, the speed of that ship was so terrifying that before anyone else could run over, it had vanished, as if it never existed. I swear I just saw a ship speed by right underneath us. While the two were still arguing, another shout came from the other side of the raft. Holy crap! There's a ship underwater. With two groups confirming it this time, the entire linked raft instantly fell into an uproar. People rushed to the edge of the raft, looking down into the sea, trying to find that mysterious ship. But the water was murky from the tsunami, and aside from that, there wasn't a single shadow to be seen. A ghost ship? No, I saw clearly it was a warship. Like the military ships on Earth. A warship? Are you crazy? It has to be a submarine. But I clearly saw it had a structure like a warship. I don't remember the shape, but I saw a bear making a funny face at me from the ship's window. Good Lord, I saw two peacocks. Looked like roosters. Spread the word. A human fleet just glided by under the sea, about to wipe out the alien races. Forwarded. That fleet has 300 ships, each armed with cannons and missiles. As more and more people joined the discussion, what was initially seen by only a few people gradually became increasingly absurd. In the end, even the eyewitnesses began to doubt themselves. Of course, on the Hope, hundreds of kilometers away, I was completely unaware of the lively commotion happening on the surface. After the Hope went full throttle and dove to the seabed to avoid detection, the time to rendezvous with the Dayuan fleet was shortened once again. At the current speed, even if the Dayuan fleet stayed in one place, the Hope could still arrive by the early morning of the 9th. If things went smoothly, the evening of the 8th wasn't impossible either. Captain Su Mo, no human activity detected within a 200-kilometer radius. Remaining dive time, 2 hours and 38 minutes. Surface, I ordered calmly, waving my hand as I listened to Gongong's report through the earpiece while standing on the second deck below the main deck. Immediately, the Hope began to rise from a depth of over 30 meters. It only took 26 seconds to complete the surfacing process. Thanks to the Epic Tier comfort attribute, even as the entire ship changed states, I, who was studying the CNC machine on the lower deck, didn't feel the slightest tremor. Compared to the mini CNC machine from before, the medium CNC machine placed in the second-floor warehouse was overwhelmingly massive. From front to back, it was nearly 15 meters long, with a design that carried a hint of sci-fi fantasy. It made it hard to believe this was a machine built by humans. Its weight reached a staggering 65 tons. Just looking at the number was enough to instill awe. Such a machine shouldn't have appeared this early, but because I bypassed the progression, I now had the chance to witness the power of mysterious tier technology firsthand. Its battery had been continuously charging using all of the Hope's power for 2 whole days, yet it still wasn't full. If I dragged this thing back to the underground shelter to use, the electricity bill alone would keep me poor for a lifetime. Just like the mini CNC machine, for its first use, the medium machine had to be fully charged. It had been over 50 hours since I set it down, yet the last 1% still wasn't done. It needed at least another 30 minutes. If we're talking about power consumption, calling it an electricity tiger wouldn't even be enough. Fortunately, the Hope could absorb energy from seawater itself. Otherwise, if placed on land, this thing would only be fit for display. No one would dare turn it on. While waiting, I didn't just sit idle. After some preliminary research, I had grasped the basic operation of the medium CNC machine. The 2 blueprints obtained from deconstructing the vertical launch module had also been inputted into the system. Once the battery was full, production could start immediately. With the current materials, I could only produce about 85 R-1 missiles. Its destructive power was on par with heavy artillery, but its range was absolutely terrifying. Over 300 kilometers, enough to obliterate targets from afar. As for the R-3, a short-range ballistic missile, I just hoped it wasn't weaker than the Dongfeng on Earth. Otherwise, I'd have to use survival points to upgrade it. Opening the system panel and looking at the bottom right corner, after a long period of accumulation, my survival points had surpassed the 75,000 mark. Feeling completely reassured, I quietly waited for the machine to finish charging. Right on schedule, 35 minutes later, the remaining battery was charged to a full 100%. The moment the words "battery full" appeared, I immediately pressed the red button in the center of the machine. In that instant, as if activating some mysterious mechanism, a deep, muffled rumble echoed from within, causing the entire ship to tremble slightly. But just a second later, a golden light swept across the ship's hull, and all sound instantly vanished. Before my eyes, a massive 65-inch crafting control panel appeared, signaling that the machine was ready for operation. At the same time, the familiar system chime rang out. Note: system detects that player Su Mo has a survival success rate of over 99% for this disaster. You are the only person globally to achieve this milestone. Note: you have received 1 medium-tier standard draw. Following that prompt, a purple, gold-rimmed achievement interface appeared, with faint patterns intertwining, making my expression turn incredibly strange. As someone who had faced disasters multiple times and led humanity's survival journey, this was already the second time I had seen this screen. The first time was way back, 2 months ago, right before the acid rain, the very first disaster struck. That day, my underground shelter was upgraded to stone materials, and had a complete drainage system. Because of that, it was recognized by the system as having a survival rate exceeding 99%. After that milestone, whether it was the blizzard, the disaster welfare, or even when the ocean arrived, this notification never rang again. It was as if it had been deleted from the system. Until today, driven by the medium CNC machine, a bugged item that absolutely did not belong in the current stage, a change had occurred. The Hope might not necessarily have a 99% chance of surviving this tsunami, but the medium CNC machine absolutely did. Compared to the first time, this one even had the prefix medium tier. Let's see if there's anything good this time. Fueled by curiosity, I used my mind to confirm the activation of the reward interface. Immediately after, the familiar 7-colored roulette wheel appeared, its shimmering light reflecting across the spacious warehouse. Compared to the last time, this roulette wheel had a new category. Currently, it was divided into 7 sections: pets, blueprints, tools, items, resources, supernatural welfare, and vehicles. Depending on the world's progression, the game seemed to continuously update the rewards to match the player's pace. After briefly skimming the categories, I didn't hesitate anymore and directly hit the spin button. Compared to the first time, the quality and rarity of the items had increased significantly. But if placed next to things like the Hope, the medium CNC machine, the vertical launch module, or the Shanghai card, none of these rewards reached that level of magnitude. The supernatural welfare section was probably the strongest, but even the worst reward in there had a mere 0.0004% chance. As for the best reward, there were over 30 zeros before the number 1. Just looking at it made my head spin. The new vehicle section was the same. The highest reward was just an exquisite tier speedboat, with a measly 0.006% chance of winning. For an ordinary person, rolling anything would significantly improve their chances of survival. But for me right now, most of these rewards were practically useless. I chuckled, watching the needle slow down. When I saw it glide past the supernatural welfare section, I wasn't disappointed, calmly waiting. But the more I looked, the stranger my expression became. For no other reason then. The game seemed to have heard my inner thoughts. The needle swept past all the sections, then stopped exactly on the new category, vehicles. Even though it felt like an invisible force was trying to hold it back, it still sluggishly inched forward, finally passing a bunch of trash rewards and stopping dead on the highest prize. Notification: congratulations to player Su Mo for winning the grand vehicle prize. Ocean Crossing Speedboat, exquisite, +1. Notification: system detects this is the first time player Su Mo has won a grand prize. The system automatically grants 1 upgrade. Notification: congratulations. The Ocean Crossing Speedboat, exquisite, has been upgraded to the Heavy Transport Speedboat, rare. Notification: system detects this is the first time player Su Mo has received a rare tier item from the roulette. The system grants another upgrade. Notification: congratulations. The Heavy Transport Speedboat, rare, has been upgraded to the Jury Speedboat, epic. What the? Hello? Mr. Game, are you playing Russian nesting dolls with me? Watching the system automatically stack gift upon gift, upgrading a mediocre exquisite tier speedboat straight to epic tier, I couldn't help but laugh. I didn't expect such a seemingly ordinary roulette spin to yield an epic tier item. Although I already had the Hope and didn't need a speedboat right now, when the time came, this thing could very well become a crucial trump card. After confirming the reward, I shook my head in awe while closing the roulette interface. But when the system asked if I wanted to claim the speedboat immediately, after carefully reviewing the specs, I decided to hold off for now. The speedboat named Jury hadn't displayed its special epic tier abilities yet, but its base stats alone were terrifying enough. 15 meters long, nearly 4 meters wide, and 6 meters high. Even on Earth, it would be considered a top-tier super speedboat. With the Hope's cargo hold, storing it wasn't an issue. But if I took it out and didn't use it right away, putting it back into storage later would be quite a hassle. I'd have to worry about transportation. The fact that the game allowed such a massive item to be stored in the system interface for 30 days was very humane. Well then, I'll just leave it there for now. Glancing at the reward interface with the gleaming Jury speedboat inside, I felt a bit reluctant. But thinking about the brutal battle ahead, I decisively closed the game panel, pulling my focus back to reality. Right now, considering the evil gods backing the 5 great royal clans, manufacturing the 5R-3 ballistic missiles was an absolute must. All the materials for the R-3, from the heat-resistant casing and the enhanced warhead to the small rocket engine at the tail, were gifts from the sea god's domain. Even the most basic materials were of exquisite quality, boasting superior attributes. Under the hands of the medium CNC machine and the official blueprints, the production process was practically flawless. But what made a missile truly powerful wasn't just the materials, but the explosives inside the warhead. As for that, the sea god couldn't provide a single ounce of it. I had to figure it out myself. Fortunately, there were still quite a lot of raw materials left on the Hope, and with the crafting blueprint, I could completely synthesize the explosives myself. But if I wanted to push the destructive power to the absolute maximum, I'd definitely have to dismantle a few large-caliber artillery shells for their powder. After getting more familiar with the medium CNC machine's control panel, I became increasingly proficient. Compared to the mini version, this upgraded model had many bizarre features that modern science couldn't explain. As long as there were enough materials, even the R-3 could be cast in one piece and sent straight to the machine's storage area. Of course, the Hope didn't have the conditions or capabilities to equip nuclear warheads, so after throwing all the basic materials in, there was only one path left for the damage-enhancing warhead: compensating quality with sheer force. I used a massive amount of TNT enhanced with psychic energy water to push the destructive power to its peak, making up for the gap compared to nuclear weapons. Even if the evil gods of the 5 royal clans turned out to be stronger than Tianquan later on, I could still use survival points to enhance it further through the system. With the direction set, I immediately took action. Returning to the armory, I called the alien soldiers over to start dismantling shells for powder. For them, this was an extremely enjoyable task. Aside from Moo Air grumbling and protest on the side, in just 4 hours, 500 artillery shells had been dismantled, and all the explosives were transferred to the CNC machine's material zone. Compared to modern missiles from the civilized era, thanks to the rare-tier engine and the vertical launch module, the R-3 could carry a heavier payload and fly faster. According to current calculations, the takeoff weight of each missile reached 69.8 tons, with an effective payload of 6.6 tons, a terrifying figure. But it still wasn't enough. As someone with a fear of insufficient firepower deeply ingrained in my Huaxia DNA, I naturally couldn't just sit still. At the crafting table, 4 robotic arms worked continuously, producing batches of enhanced TNT according to the procedure. When it came to materials, I spared no expense. After allocating enough TNT for the rocket artillery, the rest was entirely poured into the R-3s. Even the psychic energy water was pumped in fully without hesitation. With this layer of enhancement, though still far from a nuclear warhead, compared to standard versions like the Dongfeng 17, its power was definitely a notch higher. Once the preparations were complete, the medium CNC machine's interface displayed, producing 5 R-3 missiles. Estimated time, 48 hours. Manufacturing has begun. Hearing the notification at 7 p.m., I breathed a sigh of relief and returned to the main deck. The sun had set, the last light fading away. The moon hadn't risen yet, and the wasteland ocean was plunged into gloomy darkness. The seawater was pitch black, leaving only the sound of waves crashing against the hull. But I knew very well that from this moment on, across the entire wasteland sea, wherever humans were, they would enter the final sprint. And the time left for this phase was only 55 hours. What do you guys want to eat tonight? This is your last chance. Starting tomorrow, we'll be entering combat readiness. By then, if we haven't finished fighting and you get hungry, the best you'll get is instant noodles. Don't even dream of good food. 7:30 p.m. in the wasteland. After confirming everything was on track, I took a rare moment to relax, sitting on the second-floor open deck. The plan was set. Humanity was frantically preparing, just waiting for the war horn of the War of the 3 Races to blow on the final day of the tsunami. On the other side, due to yesterday's conflict, the land alien races and sea alien races had temporarily ceased fighting. There were still minor skirmishes, but on the surface, nothing serious. I knew this peace couldn't last. Most likely, once the alien races realized humanity's plan, the storm would arrive sooner than expected. But before that happened, at least for tonight, humanity would have one last peaceful night to recover their physical and mental strength. Mu'er. Mu'er wants to eat. Having spent the day dismantling artillery shells, she had been sulking, but the moment food was mentioned, Mu'er's eyes sparkled with stars, her drool nearly dripping onto the floor. That useless look made Oreo bark in disdain. But surprisingly, Oreo didn't object, pondering for a moment before nodding her doggy head. I looked over at Connie and the twins. All four of them raised their hands in agreement. I stood up, preparing to head down to the kitchen below deck. Half an hour later, the location for our final feast was set right on the main deck. The alien soldiers who had worked all afternoon also got to join in, though they only got some leftover ingredients. But the hot pot broth was so fragrant that anything dipped in it tasted amazing. When I announced the start of the meal, they charged in like starving tigers, eating as if the world was ending. I even heard quite a few groans from them biting their own tongues. I sat at the main table, watching the four little ones and Connie eating happily. I smiled faintly, then reached out and grabbed a bottle of sake placed nearby. It's fine, you guys go ahead and eat. I don't have much of an appetite today. I waved my hand, then followed the stairs straight up to the 4th floor, where the king of artillery was mounted. It was also the highest and quietest spot on the Hope. From here, I could gaze far into the distance, watching the sparkling sea reflect the moonlight. I wonder what the people in the village are doing right now. Iron Rock Mountain is so close to the coast. Hopefully no alien races are foolish enough to attack it. The Dayuan fleet has a lot of people, so the pressure is high, but with the weapons I provided, they should be able to hold out until I arrive. No need to worry too much. It's just, what exactly are the real trump cards in the hands of humanity's major shelters? I took small sips of sake, letting my thoughts drift with the rhythm of the ocean waves. See Battle Zone 308. This was exactly where the Dayuan fleet was stationed. After days of drifting on the ocean, though their progress was somewhat delayed, thanks to favorable tailwinds, the fleet finally entered the edge of Zone 3. Completely different from what I imagined, the Dayuan fleet, which had been gloomy and desolate 3 days ago, was now brightly lit and bustling with a lively party, just like the Hope tonight. Director Liu, let me toast you with this glass. I didn't expect our ship to have such premium goods. If we knew we had this kind of firepower earlier, why run? We should have just turned around and smashed those alien bastards. Exactly. You guys didn't see how those aliens reacted when they met our machine guns. The whole lot of them froze. Then we fired wildly with crossbows, and they couldn't even react. It's a shame those 3,000 sea aliens ran too fast, and we couldn't catch them. Otherwise, we would have wiped them all out in this battle. On the main deck of the Dayuan, a large table was neatly set up. Sitting around it were the main captains of the fleet. In front of them were only a few simple dishes, and in their hands were just cups of weak tea made with hot water. But the atmosphere was so lively that the tea might as well have been victory wine. At 7 a.m., after agreeing to fight, the captains didn't hesitate at all. By noon, the attack plan was finalized. At exactly 4 p.m., after 4 hours of preparation, the battle officially began. Before that, Zhang Long, who was in charge of data, had presented an analytical model. According to calculations, even if they won, the Dayuan fleet would suffer about 25% casualties, meaning at least 15,000 people would die in battle. Compared to the alien races, who numbered only around 10,000, trading 1.5 times the troop count for victory could be considered a rare major triumph in the wasteland. But reality proved that the captains were still too naive. When Liu Yongyi requested the Dayuan to lead the charge, everyone simply thought he wanted to set an example. In terms of firepower, everyone assumed the ships were roughly equal, at most using crossbows, dropping heavy objects from above, or using some homemade explosives. Even if the Dayuan had firearms, it probably wasn't much. The main force would still be close combat. However, when the battle horn sounded, the moment the wooden rafts clashed with the sea alien races, under the stunned gazes of all the captains, the main deck of the Dayuan burst open. Everyone thought they had fully understood the Dayuan's strength after sailing together for days. But when both sides of the ship simultaneously unleashed a dense barrage of modern firepower, everyone was dumbfounded. The sea alien races below were equally dumbfounded. It was a massacre. An absolute slaughter between two sides with completely disproportionate combat power. One side only wielded wooden clubs, long spears, and many were even barehanded. Meanwhile, the other side, from a high vantage point, rained down machine gun fire like a storm, with sniper rifles landing precise shots one after another. Occasionally, handguns would add a mercy shot, and most importantly, ammunition was abundant. To break through this wall of steel firepower, what price would the weaker side have to pay? It was an equation overflowing with sacrifice. To find the answer, the sea alien races paid a devastating price. In just 2.5 minutes, casualties exceeded 1,800. Real firepower isn't like TV shows, where someone takes 4 or 5 bullets and still staggers forward to stab you. These were large-caliber bullets. A hit meant death. At such close range and with such dense fire, there was no need to aim. Just hold the trigger. The Type 80 machine guns cleared everything in front of them. 2.5 minutes and nearly 2,000 casualties caused the sea alien race's morale to collapse. They fled even faster than they had charged. And at this moment, even the biggest fool understood that the opportunity had arrived. There was no need for machine guns or assault rifles anymore. Just using handguns to pick them off one by one. The entire fleet pursued the alien races for 4 or 5 nautical miles, slaughtering over 7,000 more enemies. But I think we still can't let our guard down. Amidst the joyous banquet, a voice suddenly rang out like a bucket of cold water. It sounded like a buzzkill, but upon hearing it, everyone gradually turned serious. Right now, the enemy has fewer numbers than us. Plus, we had the information advantage in this battle, which is why our firepower was so terrifyingly effective. But if they change their tactics next time, hiding underwater, closing in, and suddenly charging into our formation, we won't be able to fire freely because our own people will be in the way. The threat to them will drop drastically. And if the enemy outnumbers us, the situation will be extremely dangerous. Lu Nung is right, we can't be careless. This is a long war of attrition, and we still have to fight our way to the new continent. No matter how much ammo Director Lu prepared, it can't possibly last the whole journey. Therefore, training the survivors, building tactical formations, and establishing a defense system for the entire fleet is absolutely crucial. As Zhang Long added his thoughts, the captains gradually put aside their party mood and began discussing strategies, proposing plans to enhance their combat power. Watching this scene, Lu Yongyi, who sat at the head of the table, nodded continuously in satisfaction. Yet, from the beginning to the end of the banquet, he hadn't said a single word. As someone forged in the military and formally trained in tactics, Lu Yongyi wasn't like those captains who only knew how to talk. He had his own calculations. 2 hours ago, the government had sent a message to all fleet commanders. The content was very simple. Ships from the major shelters will arrive tonight. We will act immediately when the time comes. Aside from that, there was only one requirement. The entire fleet must maintain high alert and be ready for combat at all times. If read purely at face value, there was nothing unusual about it. But his intuition told him that this matter was absolutely not as simple as it seemed. In a mere 2 months, what could humanity possibly have prepared? Aside from the insiders, no one knew for sure. Whether those trump cards would actually be effective or not, no one dared to guarantee anything before they were revealed. 2 days. Just 2 more days until we rendezvous with Suemo. We have to hold out for these 2 days. Lu Yongyi muttered, his eyes scanning the newly received message and the rendezvous time I had sent. Suppressing the unease in his heart, he returned to his cabin, took out the touch tablet he used for scanning, and continued his inspection. See Battle Zone 001. This was the farthest, most remote area in all the war zones. At the same time, it was currently the safest place. Not a single survivor had ever set foot here. Neither the sea alien races nor the land alien races had deployed forces here. At first glance, this place seemed like an ideal sanctuary. But if the War of the Three Races officially broke out, trying to advance straight to the new continent from here would be like charging straight from the gates of hell to the southern heavenly gate. Yet, tonight, right after the midnight bell rang, under the dim moonlight, 4 massive warships quietly entered this sea zone. In the darkness, their detailed shapes couldn't be seen clearly. But judging by their size alone, the smallest one was over 60 meters long, while the largest, even surpassed the Hope, reaching a length of 100 meters. Though they were still wooden ships, if their combat power were converted into specific stats, any one of these four could easily crush the Daiyuan. And right now, even though it was nearly 1 a.m., inside the largest ship of the formation, the lights were still blazing like it was broad daylight. Humans never entered a war without prior preparation. Even in the wasteland, that fact remained unchanged. The reason the Longqi shelter could grow from 0 to its current scale in just 2 months. Possessing 4 massive warships like sea monsters wasn't due to any individual being overly powerful or exceptionally lucky. It was because nearly 2 million people were silently backing them up. Report. Come in. Following the decisive response, the perspective shifted to the largest ship in the formation, the Longqi ship of the Longqi shelter. On the second floor of the main deck, outside the meeting room, a middle-aged man immediately pushed the door open with his elbow, carrying a thick stack of documents. There were only 7 people in the meeting room, easily taken in at a glance. Though everyone looked quite young due to the game's age restrictions, their faces were heavy with worry, making the atmosphere stern. Director Long, all ships have been secured. Supplies are being transferred at high speed. Data from the other war zones has also been fully compiled. Crimson Moon in Zone 3 is in position. Dawn Sword in Zone 7 is as well. Garfield in Zone 11 is ready. As for the remaining 2 zones, Iron Armor in Zone 12 just had a direct clash with the alien races, but is holding the upper hand. It's expected to end within an hour and won't affect the plan. Arctic Bear in Zone 5 is cleaning up the battlefield and will be done in about half an hour. The current sea wind is northwesterly. It will shift to northerly in about an hour and 40 minutes, and then to southeasterly after 3 hours and 8 minutes. There are 22 minutes left until the next tsunami wave. The surface sea temperature is 9.9 degrees. The ocean current speed is 8.12 knots. The temperature difference in the deep sea currents is... Setting the stack of documents on the table, the middle-aged man quickly pulled out sheet after sheet, reporting continuously without a pause. From water temperature, climate, current speed, and wind direction, to wave fluctuations, the entire ocean situation of the wasteland was presented without missing a single detail. Even though they were in Zone 001, the most remote area, thanks to this massive data set, they could still clearly grasp the situation in all the other war zones. For over 5 minutes, the report didn't end until the final page was turned. The 7 people in the room didn't show any signs of impatience. Everyone frowned in deep thought, pondering every detail. A few more minutes passed. Just as the middle-aged man began to hesitate whether he should leave or stay, the man sitting in the center, about 45 years old with a square face, finally spoke up. How is the progress of the experiment at the base today? Any discoveries? The last part carried a hint of hesitation. Catching that implied look, the man named Xie Yongqiang immediately understood and shook his head repeatedly. Director Long, please rest assured. Although the current experimental equipment is crude, thanks to the level-based enhancement skills, the data accuracy is still highly reliable. Moreover, Phase 3 of the experiment was rushed, but it's completed. The data sent back from the other major shelters also matches our results. As for this matter, while no one dares to guarantee what the future holds, at least for now, it won't cause any harm. As for later, it was originally extracted from the wasteland anyway. What will happen, we truly can't say for sure. Xie Yongqiang shook his head with a bitter smile. For a researcher, the biggest taboo was turning speculation into a conclusion. And in the major shelters, it was an even bigger taboo to let personal speculation dictate high-level decisions. All right, Yongqiang, you may leave. Oh right. Tell the kitchen to prepare enough rations for all the soldiers tonight. Tell everyone to eat their fill. Don't let them go into battle starving. The one who spoke was a middle-aged woman sitting at the end of the table, tactfully bailing Xie Yongqiang out when she saw his awkwardness. The moment he left, the previously calm atmosphere in the meeting room was instantly shattered by a series of fierce arguments. Director Long, are you still hesitating to use that thing even at a time like this? The fire is already at our feet. Just 1 second of delay means hundreds of people dying at sea. 1 minute of delay, and tens of thousands will never see the sun again. Once the war of the 3 races breaks out, If we don't deliver a decisive blow in time to support them, we will become the eternal sinners of humanity. So what if there are consequences? All 3 phases of the experiment are done. If problems really arise later, we'll shoulder them together. Besides, with our development speed by then, are you saying we won't be able to handle the consequences we caused ourselves? Director Long, please make the decision. All war zones are in position. Where there are people, there are factions. Where there is war, there are conservatives and radicals. It was like that on the Dayuan, and it was no different on the Longqi. Right now in the meeting room, 5 of the 7 people stood on the hardline side, supporting the use of that thing. Only the man surnamed Long, addressed as Director Long, and the youngest-looking man in the room remained silent. Quiet down. Stop arguing. Director Long never said we couldn't use that thing. It's just, you guys are thinking about killing the alien races, while Director Long is thinking about the future of all humanity. Everyone is looking at this from a different perspective. What's there to argue about? Finally, the young man tapped the table lightly and spoke decisively, instantly silencing the room. Thanks to that silence, the space sank back into a heavy atmosphere, leaving only the faint rustling of turning pages. A moment later, a knock came at the door. It opened, and 7 bowls of steaming hot noodle soup were brought in. There were only a few strands of vegetables floating in the bowls, but in the cold dead of night, that was enough to warm people's hearts. While slurping the noodles, everyone continued flipping through the documents. The tension that had been pulled taut like a bowstring eased noticeably thanks to the food. When everyone had finished eating and drained every drop of broth, Director Long, sitting at the head of the table, seemed to have finally thought things through. He tapped lightly on the rim of his bowl, drawing their attention, and spoke in a deep voice. All right, we'll fight this battle according to the plan. When the time comes, we'll coordinate with the other war zones and make our move. Jia Rua is right. Every minute of hesitation means tens of thousands more dead. Instead of worrying about what the future holds, we might as well focus on the present. Let everyone set foot on the new continent first, then we'll figure out the rest. Population will always be humanity's most precious resource. If the casualties are too high in such a harsh environment, I'm afraid we'll go extinct before we even reach that day. As soon as he finished speaking, the quiet meeting room instantly boiled over. The 5 members of the radical faction stood up excitedly, grabbed their documents, and strode out of the room. In less than a minute, the once bustling room became empty. Only Director Long and the young man remained, sitting in silence, staring at the empty bowls in front of them. A while later, as the sound of footsteps in the hallway gradually faded, the young man looked up, his eyes much more resolute. Director Long, it's come to this. We don't have time to hesitate anymore. Using the special biological inhibitor was always the optimal plan for this war. Even though the tsunami arrived earlier than expected, leaving us with only 3 out of 5 testing phases completed, even if we had finished all 5, we still wouldn't have absolute data to guarantee it won't mutate. But looking at its current effectiveness, this inhibitor causes massive damage to the energy-generating organs of both the sea and land alien races. Even diluted 10 million or a billion times, just a slight contact is enough to lock down their abilities instantly, accompanied by a severe physical backlash. As long as we deploy it tonight and ensure all 12 zones are hit by the rain, with the tsunami's help, we'll see the results by tomorrow noon. Once the battle is over, we'll immediately head straight for the new continent. Even if something goes wrong later, we'll at least have enough of a buffer period to deal with it. As the only researcher among the group of 7, Wan Bei said these words not just to convince Director Long, but also to reassure himself. The special biological inhibitor was a new technology discovered by a shelter after excavating an underground ruin. The manufacturing process wasn't complex, requiring only basic equipment and some specific wasteland flora. Its single, prominent effect was suppressing the alien races. Regardless of the alien species, as long as their wounds came into contact with this substance, ingesting it also counted, they would instantly lose their abilities, accompanied by severe side effects. For example, the bullmen possessed the innate talent of immense strength. Humans didn't know where that talent originated, but the moment their flesh touched the inhibitor, no matter the concentration, that strength would completely vanish within minutes. Furthermore, due to the sudden energy depletion, their bodies would suffer a backlash, reducing their arm strength to the point where they were weaker than an adult human female. At that point, an ordinary human from Earth with just a stick could send those 2-meter-tall aliens running for their lives. And for aliens without special abilities, who relied solely on their physical stats, this drug was even more terrifying. The molecules in the inhibitor acted like the greediest of organisms, requiring energy to survive. And the source of the alien's strength was its favorite meal, drained dry in the blink of an eye. When there was no more ability left to sustain it, the body itself would be sucked dry, aging rapidly, rotting away, and eventually dying. This sheer horror was exactly what terrified the researchers the most. Once the infection mutated and the inhibitor mistook humans for targets, the consequences would be completely unimaginable. For a human without abilities to be infected by this thing would be no different from swallowing 3 pounds of poison. They would have to watch their own bodies wither day by day, rot bit by bit, and endure the most agonizing death. Wanbei, you're not the only one who's said these things to me over the past 2 days. How could I not understand the logic? If we don't use it, humanity is doomed. If we use it, we might die. In this situation, is there even a choice to make? I'm just waiting. Seeing the conflict in Director Long's eyes, Wanbei hesitated for a moment before asking softly, half guessing, half hoping, "Do you think you're the only one waiting? Breasty, Arctic Bear, Big Goose, Old Eagle, they're all waiting too. Everyone knows the hidden dangers. No one wants to become the center of humanity. Otherwise, that thing would have been used 28 days ago, right when it was first manufactured." Hearing this, Director Long shook his head with a bitter smile and patted Wanbei on the shoulder a few times. He pulled out the seemingly thick folder from the table, which actually only contained a single sheet of paper, tucked it under his arm, and slowly walked out of the meeting room. Wanbei was left alone in the room, but as he watched Director Long's back disappear, an indescribable emotion flashed in his eyes. Everyone thought the document Director Long read every day was top-secret intel that could turn the tide for humanity. But only Wanbei knew that in the brief moment it flashed open earlier, on the very first line of the blank paper in that folder, he clearly saw 2 words, Sumo. Wasteland time, March 7th, the 5th day since the tsunami disaster began, 7:26 a.m. Looking at the full tub of hot water, I tested the temperature, then stripped and slowly stepped in. 70-degree hot water. For an ordinary person, just a quick dip would cause severe burns. But for me, whose physique had reached a freakish level, and who held the title of Ocean General, a slight flinch was immediately followed by a wave of comfort spreading through my entire body. I grabbed a towel, scooped some cold water from the basin nearby, and splashed it directly onto my face. The clash between cold and hot instantly washed away the grogginess from staying awake for 2 days straight, completely clearing my head. There were less than 48 hours left until humanity's final battle. If factoring in the possibility of conflicts erupting early due to mass gatherings, then by tonight at the latest, the entire wasteland would officially raise the curtain on the first clash between the 3 races. This probing battle would directly influence the direction of all future conflicts. If the 3 sides were evenly matched, it would devolve into an all-out chaotic brawl. If humanity was strong, the sea and land alien races would ally to prioritize attacking humans. And if both humanity and the land alien races were weak, they would form an alliance to wipe out the sea alien races first. 24 hours from now, when the probing battle concluded, one of those 3 scenarios would definitely become reality. But up until now, humanity's major shelters still hadn't revealed any trump cards in this sea zone. Saying I wasn't anxious would be lying to myself. Although there were no absolute numbers, according to the casualty statistical model built by humans, as of now, at least 100 million people had permanently laid to rest at the bottom of the ocean. If the battle hadn't even started and dragged on for another day, the death toll would rise by tens of millions more. And once the war of the 3 races officially ignited, that number would skyrocket into the hundreds of millions. Just thinking about it sent chills down my spine. However, on this 5th day, the survivors seemed to have recovered quite a bit after a night's rest. Right from 7 a.m., quite a few uplifting posts appeared on the World Channel. "We have to survive. The appearance of ocean-crossing ships meant the wooden raft warriors no longer had to leave their fate to chance. Coupled with the ever-increasing number of participants, the sea-crossing efficiency of these vessels even surpassed regular fishing boats, rivaling large ships. Of course, choosing that path didn't come without a price. The moment all players shaped their energy cores for the first time, the system had made it very clear there were no second chances. This meant that half of humanity, even if they set foot on the new continent, had permanently lost the opportunity to build a shelter using an energy core. They would be forced to rely on the major shelters or scrape by building their own homes from scratch. I browsed through the chat panel to grasp the situation across the wasteland sea. Seeing the water cooling down, I didn't soak any longer. I hopped out of the tub, dried off, and changed my clothes. In the large pot in the kitchen near the bathing area, the steamed buns were already hot. I ate 6 of them in a row with some pickled vegetables. Then, glancing at the low-tier aliens who had just gotten off their shift and were preparing for breakfast, I gave a slight nod and quickly headed down to the second-floor warehouse. In just one day, 2 of the 5 R-3 ballistic missiles had been completed. The third one was also being produced at a terrifyingly fast pace. In the medium CNC machines production area, which spanned over 1,000 cubic meters, 2 missiles didn't take up much space. But since they couldn't be put back once removed from the assembly line, I temporarily left them where they were. What about the rocket artillery shells finished earlier? Out of curiosity, I pulled one out, placed it on the floor, and crouched down to inspect it closely. When building the Hope, my plan was to mount machine guns all over the deck and research RPGs for deterrence. Who would have thought that in less than a month, I'd go from having nothing to actually producing rocket artillery? The system's scanning lights swept across the shell, and an info panel appeared before me. D1 rocket artillery shell, rare, description. This is an extravagantly crafted rocket shell. From the casing material and the tail thruster to the explosives in the warhead, everything is flawless. When combined, the quality of the ammunition is significantly upgraded. Range, effective 97 kilometers, maximum 191 kilometers. Blast radius, 198 meters. Special skill, precision. If equipped with a guidance system or fire control program, accuracy is doubled. Evaluation. Today, 3 pounds, will show everyone the power of a rare-tier rocket shell. Let's see who truly dominates the battlefield, the alien races or artillery. Not bad. I nodded in satisfaction. The maximum range was nearly 200 kilometers. Good thing I upgraded the king of artillery system, otherwise, the guidance wouldn't even be enough. In the civilized era, long-range rocket artillery was a campaign-level weapon. Only major military regions or corps had the right to possess them. For example, the domestic 300mm rocket artillery cost 750,000 yuan per shell. Firing 12 shells at once cost 9 million. That meant one press of the launch button was equivalent to firing away 33 Mercedes S-Class cars. If a rocket artillery company of 4 launchers fired simultaneously, the cost would reach 36 million. Every launch was literally burning money. And that was just the cost of the ammunition, not including reconnaissance, radar, surveying, meteorology, and UAVs. Fortunately, the Hope had the vertical launch module and the king of artillery for support. Otherwise, the logistics alone would drown any faction. Also thanks to the Hope, the vertical launch module, the king of artillery, and the fact that I didn't need to hit pinpoint targets, but just needed area of effect damage, combined with the shell's precision effect, I had saved a massive amount of money. According to initial calculations, I could have produced over 40 rocket shells. But because I poured all the resources into the 5 ballistic missiles, I only had 28 shells left. With 12 vertical launch modules on the ship, firing 2 shells per module meant 2 volleys would use up 24 shells, leaving 4 to spare. And with those 4 spare shells, having never truly tested them, I had no intention of keeping them. I had to test them. I gritted my teeth. I absolutely had to test the stability and power of the launch module. If it malfunctioned during actual combat, that would be a disaster. I pulled 4 shells straight from the production area. Thanks to the convenient storage space, it only took 2 trips to bring all the shells to the launch zone. Following the procedures I learned in my dream, I operated smoothly, completing the first reload. Gong Gong, I called out directly. Scan for areas where alien races are gathered, preferably where the sea alien races and land alien races are clashing. Unlike the previous Annihilation Cannon test, recently along the Hope's route, conflicts between the sea and land alien races had been popping up quite frequently, and I never missed a single one. Under the guise of punishing evil and promoting good, the sea alien races lived in fear every day, while the land alien races were bloodthirsty, constantly picking fights. So, with the Hope right in the middle of the sea zone, finding an area where the two sides were clashing really wasn't hard. It only took 18 minutes. When Gong Gong's notification chimed, I immediately threw on my armor, called the pets who had just finished eating to follow me into battle, and opened the live stream as usual. The familiar script repeated itself. When viewership peaked, with over 7 million land aliens watching, the upper deck at the rear of the Hope slowly opened, revealing the launch module below. In the control cabin, I pressed the launch button. 3 rocket shells shot into the sky almost simultaneously, aiming straight for the center of the battlefield. At the same time, the Hope accelerated toward the scene, letting the aliens in the live stream witness the devastation of rare-tier artillery firsthand, and making them clearly understand one thing: just how weak the sea alien races truly were. As usual, the Lion King Simba let out a domineering roar for show, and then Connie turned off the live stream. After multiple interventions, the land alien races had learned their lesson. They no longer dared to interfere when we collected the spoils. Under the command of Lily the grizzly bear, 2 captains and 12 alien soldiers quickly jumped into the sea to salvage the treasure chests. This sweep, from the moment the shots were fired to the moment the loot was gathered, only took 22 minutes. The efficiency was terrifyingly high. Not bad. Looking at the dozen or so treasure chests hauled onto the deck, I nodded in satisfaction. With this kind of destructive power, it truly was invincible against ordinary alien races. But just as I was about to order the aliens who had just climbed out of the sea to go wash off the blood and gore, Oreo suddenly roared from the second-floor deck, charging down like she had gone mad. What's wrong? Seeing Oreo's eyes wide and teeth bared, a look I had never seen before, my heart instantly sank. The last time she reacted this violently was right before the false god Tianquan descended. Ever since Oreo gained her godhood, not even the mysterious ruins of time could trigger her warning. But this time, she was panicking so much. That could only prove one thing: a disaster was about to strike, absolutely no less severe than the last one. Realizing this in a split second, goosebumps covered the back of my neck. Even though I didn't understand what Oreo was growling about, that familiar look in her eyes told me this was a highest-level alert. I waved my hand, pointing straight at the aliens who had just climbed onto the deck. All of you, listen up. Squat down immediately. Hands on your heads. Do not make any sudden movements. Anyone who dares to move, I'll kill without mercy. Unlike the familiar crew and Lily the bear, I showed absolutely no leniency to these new recruits. Before identifying the source of the danger, I opted for the most decisive course of action. Despite being suppressed by my aura to the point of trembling, thanks to their military-style training, the alien soldiers obediently complied, squatting down on the deck with their hands over their heads. Lily, call Mu-air here for me. I pulled out my pistol, my eyes locked onto the 14 aliens sitting on the ground. Lily immediately understood and turned to run down to the lower deck. But before she could get far, in my line of sight, the bodies of those 14 aliens began to undergo a horrifying mutation. Before transmigrating, I had watched an American apocalyptic movie. In the film, once bitten by the infected, 12 seconds was all it took to complete the entire process: infection, onset, and going mad to attack others. The zombies in that movie ran as fast as marathon runners, had boundless stamina, and even knew how to coordinate their attacks. That scene had traumatized countless people. But compared to what was happening right in front of my eyes, that was child's play. Bang, bang. Everyone calm down. Stay down. No sudden movements. I roared, firing 3 warning shots into the air as I shouted. Because among the 14 aliens, 3 of them looked as if their time had been fast-forwarded. In less than 15 seconds, their bodies had shriveled up like mummies, their skin clinging tightly to their bones. My scalp went numb, and the hairs on my arms stood on end, but I forced myself to maintain an imposing presence. Fortunately, the remaining aliens didn't continue to mutate. Under the sound of the gunshots and my shouting, despite their panicked expressions, they didn't dare to move an inch. Seconds ticked by. By the time Mu-Er arrived, the 3 corpses were completely dehydrated, lying starkly under the sun. Their darkened flesh emitted a ghastly metallic sheen. At the same time, a strange odor began to spread. It wasn't the familiar smell of corpse wax, but the scent of slightly spoiled raw meat. Fainter, yet overwhelmingly nauseating. If low-intelligence mutant beasts were around, they would definitely be lured by this smell, treating it as food and rushing in to devour it raw. Woof. Bark bark. No. Seeing Mu-Er start communicating with Oreo, I still didn't take my eyes off the 3 corpses. After confirming that the remaining aliens on the deck showed no further signs of mutation, I immediately opened the system interface and switched to the world chat channel. Sure enough, the chaos had already begun. Brothers, you won't believe this. I got my leg pinched by a giant crab earlier, thought I was a goner. Who knew its claw was as weak as noodles? I snapped it right off and stabbed it to death. Freaking awesome. Are you just making up stories this early in the morning? I'm not joking. I just went 1v1 with a multi-armed fish that usually attacks super fast, but today it was slower than my grandma. I even had time to grope. Never mind. Our ship got attacked by over 60 aliens. Before we could even fight, they all turned into dried corpses. Gave me goosebumps just looking at it. For real? Is everyone experiencing weird stuff too? Breaking news. Humanity's government has made their move. The alien races are suffering a backlash. Our time has come. Stop bragging. The aliens in my area are still aggressive as hell. Messages scrolled by continuously, a mix of extreme joy and sheer panic. Some were ecstatic because the once invincible aliens were now as weak as snails, their powers gone. Others were terrified, having witnessed hordes of aliens turning into dried corpses and dying of unknown causes. Less than 2 minutes later, the game's message filtering system began automatically pushing a flood of related information. For instance, the fierce tigers, famous for their tyrannical strength, capable of sweeping the battlefield barehanded. But today, the warriors who used to joke about sliding to kill turned that joke into reality. An hour ago, nearly 1,000 fierce tigers attacked a human fleet of 300 wooden rafts. It was supposed to be a one-sided massacre, but the result was the exact opposite. On the water, humans completely overwhelmed the fierce tigers. 1-on-3 was common. Even frail women were using long spears to fend off 2 fierce tigers as easily as flipping their hands. The young men were even more terrifying. With a single thrust, the spear pierced straight through the abdomen, blood splattering everywhere. What was predicted to be a one-sided slaughter turned into a merciless tiger-hunting feast for humanity. In just 48 minutes, while our side didn't lose a single person, except for one idiot who got scratched while looting, the enemy left behind over 700 fierce tiger corpses and a dozen treasure chests, before scattering like a broken hive. A similar situation happened with the sea snakes, a race notorious for their deadly venom. When they reared up to human height, their venom was extremely potent. Just a drop on the skin burned like sulfuric acid, and if it entered the bloodstream, death was instantaneous. In the first few days after their descent, the sea snakes were undefeated. Their numbers quadrupled, reaching 700. Even other powerful alien races had to avoid them. But today, they messed with the wrong opponent. This time, the human fleet wasn't just one raft, but 3 large ships, over 20 small ships, and a massive wooden raft carrying over 2,000 people. Such a formation would normally terrify ordinary aliens out of their wits. Yet the sea snakes showed no fear. They quickly formed up and, without hesitation, opened with a fierce volley of venom aimed straight at the people on the raft. The first volley went incredibly smoothly. The surprise attack left the humans with no time to react. Just as the sea snakes expected, the poisoned humans began to panic and flee, the familiar fear and despair clearly written on their faces. Just 2 or 3 more volleys, and the human formation would shatter like rats flushed out by water. Then, they could leisurely enjoy the rotting human corpses in the venom. But today, something was very wrong. After the second volley, the scene before them shocked the sea snakes to their core. The humans who had just fled were still alive and kicking. Not only were they not dead, but they weren't even injured. In fact, when they returned to the crowd, they were laughing and chatting excitedly with their comrades, happily running back to their original positions. This time, they stood on the raft, arms wide open, welcoming the venom as if they were taking a shower in the rain, their expressions bizarrely thrilled. Under the bewildered gazes of the sea snakes, some people even smeared the venom all over their faces, while others licked it, as if tasting a local delicacy. The sea snakes looked at each other, eyes wide and jaws dropped. None of them understood what was happening, but the horror didn't stop there. The humans who previously would have collapsed after taking just 2 hits of venom were now howling like living demons, jumping into the water themselves and charging straight into close combat with the sea snakes. In the terrified eyes of the snakes, what they saw in the humans was no longer fear, no longer evasion. There was only fanaticism, excitement, and a maddening thirst for battle. It only took 37 minutes to completely wipe out all 700 sea snakes. The 2,000 people on the raft acted like they were at a festival. Some held up sea snake corpses as trophies, while others were furious because they were too slow and didn't get to kill any, looking as devastated as if they had just missed the jackpot. Similar scenes were playing out all across the wasteland. The giant frogs, a race famous for jumping 2 or 3 meters high, could only manage a few inches today. The brown bears, who used to carry 500-kilo boulders without blinking, now couldn't even lift their own weapons. The mantis shrimp, who once swam at speeds of 70 kilometers per hour, were now being casually overtaken by treasure fish. The water macaques, a species capable of fighting for hours without rest, were scratching their heads and muttering, "I must be too tired," after just 2 seconds of combat today. Across the entire wasteland, the alien races simultaneously encountered a bizarre crisis. Their special abilities vanished, and their immense strength disappeared into thin air. Those who once viewed humans as ants to be crushed underfoot had now become fat pieces of meat, hunted across the ocean. At this moment, they finally tasted the despair that humans had once endured, and there was no longer any chance for regret. Glancing over at Oreo, I saw she was still on high alert, growling while communicating with Muir. I wasn't in a rush. After finishing with the human chat channel, I switched to the alien interface provided by Connie. Sure enough, just as expected, the human side was riding high on morale, while the alien side was crying rivers as if the apocalypse was upon them. Regardless of whether they were a strong or weak species, everyone discovered that overnight they had lost all their power. Except for a very small number of lucky aliens who managed to board ships and escape, 70% of those still at sea since last night had been wiped out. As for the aliens with a strength index below 0.5, who had no special abilities and relied purely on brute force, they were completely annihilated. Not a single one survived. The strong lost their power, and the weak lost their lives. Even the flying snow bears, who were among the top-tier alien races, had their strength index drop to 0.8. Didn't that mean that before the War of the Three Races even officially began, humanity had already secured the victory? I continued scrolling through the chat panel for another 10 minutes. On the surface, I remained calm, but inside, a massive storm was brewing. This time, humanity's transmigration had completely broken away from all previous scripts. If things continued like this, when the Great War officially broke out, humanity might slaughter the alien races clean without shedding a single drop of blood. Relying on the treasure chests they gathered, once they set foot on the new continent, humanity would experience an explosive growth at an unprecedented speed. In just a year or two, civilization would be reborn, perhaps even surpassing the era of Mafi, advancing further and growing stronger. But would things really go that smoothly? According to the law of conservation of energy, whenever anything gains something, it inevitably has to trade a corresponding part in return. The game was the same. Even that mysterious system was no exception. There was no such thing as a free lunch. Humans could only use a small amount of energy to trigger a larger reaction. There was never a case of gaining everything while sacrificing nothing. And now, this inhibitor spreading across the wasteland sea, causing all alien races to simultaneously lose their powers, was exactly that kind of thing. You mean, based on how strong or weak each alien was before. The time it takes for them to suffer the backlash will also vary. MHM. That's exactly what Sister Oreo said. Standing outside the crew's quarters on the first floor, looking through the small glass window on the door, I observed the low-tier aliens quarantined inside while asking in a low voice. Currently, in the lockdown crew lounge, there were 11 surviving aliens, all of whom had completely lost their powers. Though they didn't know what was happening, after I reassured them that their lives weren't in danger, these aliens weren't panicked at all. Instead, they were thrilled, enjoying an unexpected 2-day vacation. Their condition looked fairly stable. Aside from physical weakness and the complete loss of their abilities, there were no other abnormal signs. As for the 3 who had died earlier, through interrogating the surviving aliens, I had somewhat figured out why they died so gruesomely. Did Oreo predict when they'll suffer the backlash? Closing the bamboo tube, I led Mu-air back up to the deck, asking as we walked. Half an hour ago, after checking the system interface and communicating with Lu Yongyi, I had grasped the entire situation. This special biological inhibitor was the trump card developed by humanity's upper echelon to counterattack the alien races. Thanks to its overwhelming effectiveness, humans could crush the aliens as easily as flipping their hands in a short period of time. Without a doubt, at this current stage, this inhibitor had saved all of humanity. According to Lu Yongyi, humans had conducted 3 rounds of testing on the aliens and confirmed there were no short-term issues before daring to deploy it. But I trusted Oreo's prediction more than any experimental data. According to Sister Oreo, the first backlash will be based on the initial strength of each alien. The weak will suffer the backlash sooner, at the fastest, 1 day, at the latest, 3 days. When the backlash occurs, their strength will instantly recover to its peak state, and in the following half-day, it will surge by at least another 50%. At this point, Mu-air paused for a moment, then continued with a serious expression. After that enhancement, the drug doesn't lose its effect. Instead, it will continue, making them stronger and stronger. But this process has side effects. Every enhancement goes through 3 stages: weakening, then backlash, then flourishing. If they don't accumulate enough energy during their weakened state to prepare for the next phase, then when the backlash hits, the massive surge of energy will strike their consciousness directly. At that point, if they can't handle it, they'll lose their minds and turn into things that only know how to slaughter and absorb energy, pure monsters. Wait a minute, doesn't that sound exactly like zombies? I cursed, my eyes wide as I cut Mu-air off. Zombies? Never mind, skip that. You keep going. Seeing Mu-air looking confused, I shook my head slightly and rubbed the back of my neck, a sudden chill running through my heart. For humanity, this move was no different from drinking poison to quench thirst. If Oreo's prediction was right, this was an act of digging their own graves. Let alone the fact that the aliens would grow exponentially stronger like a rolling snowball. Just the fact that they would eventually turn into a supercharged version of zombies was enough to make anyone's scalp tingle. Imagine a creature even stronger than the zombies in Earth's apocalyptic movies. If they flooded into the new continent, that would be the real apocalypse. Seeing my silence and dark expression, Mu-air also understood the severity of the situation and continued explaining. Master, don't worry too much. Once the aliens turn into monsters, they won't retain the peak strength of their final backlash. Take Lang San in the quarantine room, for example. If he currently has a strength level of 1, after the backlash it increases 5-fold. But if he can't handle it and turns into a monster, he'll only retain half of his original strength, meaning just 0.5. Lang San was a werewolf currently locked in the crew's quarantine room. Thanks to being nourished by the psychic energy water, Mu-air's intelligence had also quietly improved significantly, to the point where she could now clearly articulate even complex comparisons. With that much strength, they couldn't even beat me. After weakening by half, it's even less of a problem. Master, you can rest easy. But those kinds of monsters have another special ability. As long as they bite someone, any creature will enter the same cycle as them, weakening, then backlash, then getting stronger. If they can't handle it, they'll also turn into monsters, losing all consciousness, leaving only the instinct to slaughter. Humans aren't affected by the drug right now, But once bitten by these monsters, they won't be able to escape it either. This was the biggest threat Oreo had warned me about. Hearing this, I wasn't surprised at all. I just nodded with a grim expression. Then I asked the most crucial question. Could Oreo predict which round the mutants would undergo a complete mutation? Woof, woof, woof. 4. Seeing Oreo lying on the ground and nodding in confirmation, my blood ran cold. Looking at the big picture, following the cycle of weakening, counterattacking, and then growing stronger, the 4th round wouldn't last more than 3 months, no matter how long it dragged on. Meanwhile, it would take humanity at least a month or 2 just to migrate to the new continent and settle down. That meant less than a month after arriving, before we could even warm our seats, we'd be facing a world-ending catastrophe. If a couple more unexpected disasters hit during that time, it'd be game over. No suspense needed. Looking closer, the exact moment the War of the 3 Races broke out would also be when the mutants launched their first counterattack. 1 day later, which was the 6th day since the tsunami started, the mutants would gradually recover their former strength. By the last day of the tsunami, at least half of the mutants would be fully recovered. And at that point, they wouldn't just be back to normal, they'd be buffed. If humanity still had the illusion that they could crush the mutants and eagerly rushed into a massive war, what awaited them would be a fatal slap in the face from this wasteland. Not to mention, after humanity's relentless hunt today, the land and sea mutants would definitely join forces once the war began. By then, the pressure on humanity would increase tenfold, maybe even dozens of times over. Damn it! This time, humanity really shot themselves in the foot. That so-called inhibitor drug, what an absolute masterpiece of destruction. I don't know which genius came up with this crap. If they had thrown it straight into the mutants' lair, it would have been fine. But scattering it right across the wasteland? That was no different from triggering an upgraded Hell on Earth event. Just thinking about the entire human race migrating to the new continent, only to face millions of super mutants before they even finished building their houses. It makes my hair stand on end. If the wasteland was only on normal difficulty before, that last move just cranked it straight up to hell mode. But after thinking it over, I came up with the only way to drag this difficulty back down to an acceptable level. Using the authority of the culinary god. I just need to use the culinary god's power to create a special food that can cleanse the inhibitor from the mutants' bodies. Then I can stop this disaster before it completely spirals out of control. But the problem is, the scale is just too massive. The number of infected foreign races is in the tens of billions. If I try to save them one by one, no matter how stupid the game is, it'll instantly notice something's wrong. I let out a soft breath. Whatever. There's no point worrying about things 3 months down the line. For these survivors, whether they'll even live long enough to set foot on the new continent is still a mystery. Even if I told them, what difference would it make? The only problem they need to face right now is how to survive the frantic counterattack of the foreign races when the war between the 3 races officially breaks out. Having figured this out, I no longer plan to keep it a secret. Since I know for a fact that the foreign races will start regaining their strength in just 1 day. Even if I run to the World Channel right now and scream at the top of my lungs. Stop killing. In 3 days, they'll be stronger. You won't be able to kill them. No one would believe me. If anything, it would just cause mass panic and completely destroy humanity's morale. I might as well let them keep farming monsters. The more they kill, the better. I can't wait any longer. I need to contact the higher-ups of humanity immediately and instigate a full-scale general offensive. Over the next 2 days, all of humanity must quickly wipe out the foreign races in their respective waters. That's the only way to ease the pressure for the upcoming war. Slamming my hand on the table, having clearly seen the only path left. I don't hesitate anymore. I open the game interface and send a message to Liu Yongyi, asking to be put in touch with humanity's highest authorities. The response comes back incredibly fast. In less than 2 minutes, a friend name card with a brief description is sent over. This is it, the strongest official shelter in Huaxia. The leader of the Longqi shelter, Longangua. I cast my gaze over the wasteland before me. Right now, there are anywhere from 8 to 10,000 official shelters under Huaxia's jurisdiction. As long as the shelter leader has a verified identity and is willing to protect civilians, and contacts the right official channels while providing the necessary data, they can join this system. The so-called easy requirement is simply having a shelter with over 50 people. This setup not only helps stabilize morale and social order in the early stages, but also ensures that when the critical moment arrives, orders from the top can be relayed quickly and efficiently. According to Liu Yongyi's introduction, the Longqi shelter has now become the strongest among thousands of official shelters. There's no doubt about it. It's definitely thanks to the right timing, favorable location, and united people. After thinking for a moment, I send an OK sign to Liu Yongyi, but I don't rush to add the friend right away. I head back to the captain's cabin, carefully organizing my words in my head. If humanity's higher-ups conducted 3 rounds of testing before releasing this specific biological inhibitor, then the phenomenon of the foreign races experiencing a power rebound after being weakened should have been anticipated, and it should have erupted after 3 to 4 days. But in reality, humanity completely failed to predict this severe side effect. There are only 2 possibilities for this. Either the inhibitor had an abnormal reaction when it mixed with seawater, or there was a problem with the experimental data. A moment later, I look down at the blank piece of paper where I've listed the key points and review them one more time. This time, after confirming there are no loopholes, I don't hesitate any longer. I open the game interface and send the friend request. Less than a second. There's almost zero delay. The moment I send the request, the other side accepts it. It's as if he's been waiting right there on the friend's interface. The speed is startling. At the same time, before I can even say anything, the man named Longangwa takes the initiative to message first. Longangwa. Hello, Director Su. The title Director Su catches me a bit off guard, but I can't help the slight smile tugging at the corners of my mouth. After a brief thought, I don't reply to the message, nor do I hide the state of the captain's cabin. Instead, I directly hit the video call button. Given the current situation, explaining things clearly via text is practically impossible. Only by talking face-to-face, speaking frankly and clearly, can I make this strongest shelter fully grasp the situation. From there, they can mobilize the full power of the government and rally the surviving humans to take action. And Longangwa on the other end doesn't hesitate either. He answers the call immediately. The connection static buzzes 3 times. Based on my previous video call experience, I know the distance between us must be somewhere between 5 to 10,000 kilometers. Considering that the Hope is currently in Area 5, right in the center of the war zone, the location of the Longqi shelter is practically decoded. But before I can ponder it any further, the static fades away. A stern yet charismatic face appears on the screen. It's Longangwa. At a glance, he's a middle-aged man around 45, with a square jaw and 2 deep wrinkles on his forehead. But right now, with a bright smile on his face, those wrinkles look more like a character-8 mustache, breaking his initial sternness and making him look much more approachable. Hello, Director Long. Seeing the video connect successfully, unconcealed surprise flashes in Longangwa's eyes. I smile faintly and take the initiative to greet him first. The captain's cabin of the Hope still retains its rough, cold steel style from the early days. Every time I plan to renovate it, some random issue always pops up and ruins the plan. At a glance, this place looks extremely rugged. But this very style, which back on Earth would have been mocked as Syrian war zone chic, has now become the clearest symbol of personal power in this desolate world. While everyone else is still using wooden boats, the man sitting in Longqi knows exactly what a steel warship represents. He also understands that I didn't reveal this by accident. It's a deliberate unsheathing of my sword. Coupled with the fact that I previously mentioned the Dongfeng 17, if it's equipped with such weapons, then in this wasteland, this steel warship can go wherever it pleases. No creature can stop it. Hello, Director Su. As if suddenly snapping back to reality, Longangwa immediately reacts and hastily returns the greeting. Unlike Liu Yongyi, his attitude treats me almost as an equal. In other words, from this reaction, I can somewhat guess how the current higher-ups view me. Extremely friendly. I give a slight nod, skipping the pleasantries, and cut straight to the chase. Director Long, I contacted you today, so let's not beat around the bush. I'll get straight to the point. Regarding the specific biological inhibitor we dropped last night, I want to ask. In the 3 previous rounds of testing, were there any abnormal results observed in the test subjects? As soon as I finish speaking, Longangwa freezes for a moment. The smile on his face slowly fades, replaced by a rare look of utmost seriousness. This specific inhibitor went through 3 full phases of testing before being officially deployed. Furthermore, those tests weren't conducted solely by Longqi. 6 major shelters across the wasteland participated in the project. The test samples included nearly 30,000 foreign race individuals, along with 2,000 human volunteers and 3,000 mutated creatures. The data shows that abnormal results primarily appeared only in the foreign races. As for humans, absolutely no abnormalities were detected. You can rest assured on that front. When discussing matters directly tied to the fate of all humanity, manhwa appears extremely cautious. As he speaks, he turns his head and orders a subordinate to bring out a complete set of data reports. However, he misunderstood the core of my question. The parts displayed on the screen are mostly human trial data, while the records regarding the foreign races are pushed to the side, clearly not given much importance. I just quickly glance at a few lines in the report, then shake my head. Director Long, I'm not asking about the human data. What I want to see are the abnormal results from the foreign races. I look up, staring straight into the screen. According to my sources, it's highly likely that a severe issue occurred during our testing phase. And now, a massive disaster is truly upon us. I pause for a beat, my voice dropping significantly. If we don't handle this properly, humanity's survival rate might not even reach 1%. I'm not fear-mongering, because in just 2 days, this catastrophe will officially strike. The moment the words leave my mouth, Manhwa's expression instantly changes, sheer shock written all over his face. But as the leader of the Longqi shelter, his reaction is incredibly fast. Without getting bogged down by the implications of my words, he immediately signals his subordinates to open the data related to the foreign races and spread it all out on the table. At the same time, he adjusts the camera angle so the images are as clear as possible. I immediately start reading the data. My eyes scan rapidly, taking in 10 lines at a glance, my entire mind highly focused. Wasteland Calendar, February 3rd. Humanity's first large-scale foreign race experiment. Location, Polar Bear Shelter. Number of foreign race subjects, 320, belonging to 12 different tribes. Inhibitor concentration, 0.03. Results, 268 subjects were affected within 15 seconds of exposure, losing all abilities within 30 seconds. The remaining 52 individuals turned into dried corpses within a minute. 0 survivors. Action taken, detained for further observation. I continue reading down from the first report. Over 30 consecutive records, none showing any obvious issues. Until February 18th. During the 122nd trial, the first variable appeared among the foreign races. It was a mutated group belonging to the fire spider tribe. Normally, they are weak, with a power rating of less than 0.1. But strangely, after being hit by the inhibitor and weakened, one of the fire spiders went berserk. It lunged at and tore into the fire ant tribe, whom they had previously coexisted with quite peacefully. Every time it devoured a fellow creature, its strength gradually recovered. After eating 26 of them in a row, it completely returned to its original state, and even continued to grow stronger with each bite. But when it ate its 60th victim, its strength suddenly plummeted at an extreme rate, becoming even weaker than before it recovered. Immediately after, it was deemed a threat by its own kind and was surrounded and bitten to death. The anomaly was that the fire spiders that ate it didn't get any stronger. They remained in their weakened state, completely contradicting the initial hypothesis that energy would be transmitted through consumption. This result was shared with other shelters, but no matter how they tried to replicate it, nowhere else yielded similar results. I read all the way to the end, but I still don't see any cases showing that the foreign races could naturally recover their strength a few days after being weakened by the inhibitor. As of March 3rd, exactly 1 month after the first experiment, all the foreign races that had been tested on remained as weak as before and were locked in quarantine. They were only slightly agitated at night for the first few days, but very quickly became docile, as if they fully understood the meaning of man proposes, God disposes. That was the only variable in all 3 rounds of testing. Confirming I haven't missed a single detail, I ask sternly and directly. Director Long, out of the creatures that participated in the trials 3 days ago, are any of them still alive right now? Long Ongwa nods immediately. Yes, we still have some in our base right now. Lately, the foreign races have been easy to catch, so we took the opportunity to run a few more tests. At this point, he suddenly stops, as if realizing something. His eyes instantly change. You mean, I don't hesitate. I suggest you immediately deploy a hunting squad to track down and eliminate all the creatures tested 3 days ago. The goal is to confirm whether they have truly regained their strength or not. Reality proves that when creatures acquire human-like cognition, their survival instincts also gradually approach those of humans. In Huaxia's history, there was King Gojian of Yu who slept on brushwood and tasted gall, and Han Xian who endured the humiliation of crawling between someone's legs. There were Bo Yi and Shu Qi who would rather starve to death than eat the grain of zhou, and Zhu Di who feigned madness while secretly biding his time. And now, right here in this wasteland, the foreign races dragged into these experiments, facing an enemy stronger than themselves, are bizarrely repeating that very history. It's over. We're really done for this time. Looking at the reconnected video call, the person who appears isn't Long Ongwa, but a young man. My heart sinks. The worst-case scenario has finally happened. Just as expected, these foreign races are not easy to deal with. Out of the 30,000 foreign races captured for testing, aside from a few simple-minded ones, who were so weak they had nothing left to lose, the vast majority silently made the exact same choice: survive at any cost. They feigned weakness, putting on an act so flawless it fooled even seasoned scientists. Even during the initial purge, a few foreign races that still had their strength intentionally let themselves be beaten to death. No resistance. No signs of anything amiss. That behavior made the research team completely believe that they had truly lost all their power. But thanks to Long Ongwa's order of better to kill by mistake than let one slip, the research team didn't stop at a small-scale test this time. Instead, they directly dispatched a fully armed combat squad to hunt down all the foreign races tested 3 days ago. And at that exact moment, the foreign races showed their true colors. Realizing that humanity had caught on to something, they instantly went berserk and counterattacked, no longer hiding. Fortunately, thanks to my warning, the combat squad was well prepared and ready for a fight to the death. Even so, the foreign race's surging power still caught people off guard, causing casualties and losses in several areas. After the purge ended, Long Ongwa immediately released all the data to the other major shelters. Just half an hour later, everyone discovered the truth that had been hidden all this time. It really is like the saying goes. It's not that we are incompetent, but the enemy is too cunning. No one expected that, despite being scattered everywhere and completely unable to communicate with each other, these foreign races could all make the exact same decision: play weak to survive. That performance was truly phenomenal. Right now, it's the 5th day of the tsunami. It's estimated that between 7 o'clock and 8 a.m. tomorrow, the foreign race's strength will begin to recover. By noon on the 6th day, it will reach a minor peak. From that noon until the morning of the 7th day will be humanity's most difficult period, as we face the frantic retaliation of these monsters. I estimate the casualty rate could reach around 45%. The moment those heavy numbers are spoken, the young man freezes, then is pulled out of the frame. The screen shakes slightly. Long Ongwa's face reappears, but this time, his smile is completely gone, replaced by a heavy look of anxiety. Director Su, thank you for providing this crucial information to humanity. If it weren't for your warning, I'm afraid we would have taken the full brunt of the foreign race's most brutal counterattack while still caught off guard. I nod. Director Long, there's no need for formalities. As a human, anyone who gets their hands on this kind of information would share it unconditionally. More importantly, we aren't completely hopeless yet. We still have at least 22 hours to react. I pause for a beat, then continue. I suggest we use the government's full influence and network to launch a general offensive immediately. Try to wipe out all foreign races within a 50-kilometer radius of every fleet before noon tomorrow. After all, in the upcoming war between the 3 races, we'll have to face them head-on anyway. We might as well strike first, secure a solid victory, and gather loot to boost our strength. By the time they counterattack, we'll have strategic depth and time to respond. As for the fact that the foreign races will turn into man-eating corpses in 3 months, I thought about it very carefully and ultimately chose to keep it a secret. Because if we don't win this battle, whatever happens 3 months from now won't matter anyway. Only by winning will humanity have the right to talk about the future, to talk about choices, whether to advance to the continent for a life-and-death showdown, or to continue drifting on the ocean as free wanderers. Director Su, we understand the stakes perfectly, Long Ongwa says slowly. Our people have already begun making emergency contacts. In an hour at most, all captains of official units will receive the news. This time, the 6 major shelters will act in unison. In 3 hours at most, this entire desolate ocean will erupt. Based on the time frame you've provided, in this battle, humanity will fight to the death. With that, Long Ongwa stands up, raises his hand to his temple, and delivers a standard military salute. I stand up as well, returning a crisp salute. Fight to the death. No need for flashy slogans. Those few words perfectly capture humanity's current plight. The call ends. I sit there, observing the shifts on the World Channel, then turn to give Lu Yongyi some additional instructions. Based on our current progress, barring any accidents, the Hope should rendezvous with the Tundra Fleet by the early hours of the 9th. Before that, starting from noon tomorrow, given the massive scale of the Tundra Fleet, they will undoubtedly face an unprecedentedly fierce battle. Even though I have great faith in the fleet's strength, especially now that they've been resupplied with modern weapons, I still issue a special directive to minimize risks. The 2 core orders are simple: kill and stall. From now until tomorrow morning, show absolutely no mercy. Wipe out all foreign races in the surrounding waters. Stall. From tomorrow morning until the early hours of the 9th, use whatever means necessary to hold out until we rendezvous. I declare, all warships, immediately fan out into combat formation. Objective: wipe out all foreign races within a 50-kilometer radius of the fleet. Even the makeshift wooden rafts must be combat-ready within 2 hours, advance to their designated areas, and commence operations. From now until 4 a.m. tomorrow, I don't want to see a single foreign race left alive in this area. Understood. Bang. Standing on the deck, Lu Yongyi draws his pistol and fires a shot straight into the sky as the signal to commence battle. His eyes are ice-cold, murderous intent surging. Below, over 100 captains roar in unison. Next order. Lu Yongyi shouts. Zhang Long, Li Hu, Lu Neng, you 3 are in charge of dropping the anchors. In half an hour, I want to see the entire formation fan out simultaneously. The captains leap onto the wooden rafts one by one and depart from the ship. Lu Yongyi returns to the meeting room. The command board instantly lights up. On the screen, every foreign race within a 50-kilometer radius is clearly displayed. The majority are clustered around the tundra at a distance of 35 kilometers, divided into 3 large groups and 7 smaller ones. The total enemy force is around 40,000, and with every passing second, hundreds more red dots appear. The foreign races have set aside their grudges, actively grouping together to increase their chances of survival. Under unified command, the large ships split into 3 directions, striking directly at the main enemy groups. The smaller ships fan out like a giant net, cutting off any escape routes. Meanwhile, 15 large transport ships and nearly 100,000 warriors on wooden rafts form the frontal assault. In just the first clash, over 20,000 foreign races are slaughtered. The rest are chased for 30 to 50 kilometers, resulting in another 15,000 wiped out. If it weren't for some foreign races diving deep to escape early on, the Tundra Fleet could have annihilated them all. And it isn't just happening here. That day, resounding victories spread across the desolate ocean. Under the direction of the 6 major shelters, even before the tsunami has subsided, humanity officially launches a full-scale counteroffensive. While humanity fights for every second to kill the enemy, the once arrogant foreign races fight for every second to flee. From 12 p.m. on the 7th to 2 a.m. on the 8th, in less than half a day, roughly 20% of the total foreign race population is wiped out. The flesh and blood of millions of foreign races blend into the ocean. Even with the tsunami washing it away, the sea surface remains a sickening, bloody red. Bathed in the stench of blood, humanity reaps another massive harvest. According to preliminary government statistics, today alone, humanity's overall strength has increased by over 20%. More importantly, over 70% of the survivors have personally engaged in the slaughter, wiping out their fear of the foreign races and completely transforming their mindset. This new mindset, no longer hesitant, no longer trembling, is the most powerful weapon for the battles to come. But right at this moment, as the Hope just enters the edge of War Zone 5, preparing to approach Area 3, my expression becomes incredibly grim. Ling-san, how do you feel right now? Reporting to the director, I feel absolutely fantastic right now. I could beat down 5 versions of my past self. Standing on the floor of the quarantine room, Ling-san, a werewolf, strokes his bulging, vein-popping biceps while basking in the envious gazes of the other foreign races. As if to prove his words, he unleashes a wind blade. Previously, this skill could only be used by 4 out of over 200 werewolves. But now, after the first rebound, feeling his power return, he easily executes it amidst the cheering and congratulations of the surrounding foreign races. And whether that's just over 20 degrees, my face is as pale as if I've fallen into an ice cellar, my whole body trembling. The reality of the situation is far worse than what the young researcher at the Longqi shelter predicted. The strength of the foreign races under this rebound hasn't just increased by a mere 150%. In that moment, I also understand why the specific biological inhibitor could instantly drain creatures with no abilities, turning them into dried corpses. The rebound is too massive. So massive that bottom-tier foreign races with zero potential have skyrocketed overnight, leaping across class tiers. For those foreign races without abilities, they simply couldn't withstand this colossal rebound. Even if they initially absorbed enough energy, their bodies would easily be torn apart by the energy during the rebound process. Meanwhile, the foreign races with abilities could utilize the excess energy to upgrade their skills, even reaching levels they wouldn't have dared dream of before. I have to say, with this twisted development, humanity is facing a true nightmare. I immediately issue orders. Muni, stay here and monitor all the foreign races. Record the exact time of transformation for each individual. Don't miss a single one. Lily, go investigate their original strength. I need to know exactly how much stronger they've gotten this time. N, get on the World Channel immediately. Spread rumors that this inhibitor was a ploy by the sea foreign races. Pin all the blame on them. It doesn't matter if people believe it or not. I just need the foreign races to not launch a unified counterattack against humanity right from the start. Having assigned the tasks, I quickly return to the captain's cabin and connect with Qinshan. Ironstone Mountain of Hope Village is located in shallow waters. Although the war out in the ocean might not have reached them yet, the shelter is still underground. I have to warn them in advance. Once connected, I seriously explain the gravity of the upcoming situation. Don't worry, Director, Qinshan replies. Since yesterday, we've had the hunting squad clear out the surrounding area. As long as we rely on the terrain, holding the defensive line won't be a problem. It's just that. It's fine, I cut him off. You guys just need to hold Ironstone Mountain and protect the base. That's enough. Don't worry about things on this end. Seeing the worry on Qinshan's face, I ask him to gather the entire village management board to hear my instructions. In that speech, I emphasize 3 points. First, since the village is near shallow waters, if you encounter fleeing survivors, you can assist them within your capabilities. But absolutely do not let emotions override your principles. Be on guard against hypocrites sneaking in. Second, try to recruit survivors with special abilities to prepare for the future construction of the new continent. However, the screening process must be extremely strict. Absolutely do not let any spies infiltrate. Third, strictly forbid any group of people from climbing the mountain. These 3 points are the survival principles of Hope Village during this great catastrophe. After hanging up, I no longer have the mental capacity to worry about Hope Village. Because compared to them, the people wandering out at sea are the ones truly in a desperate situation. Their circumstances are thousands, tens of thousands of times worse. In 6 hours at most, when the first foreign races realize their strength has recovered, and is even greater than before, after a full day of being relentlessly hunted by humans, they absolutely will not pass up the chance to counterattack. By then, starting at 9 a.m., the all-out war between humans and the foreign races will officially erupt. To turn this situation around, to minimize humanity's losses to the absolute lowest, let alone one hope, even 10 or 100 wouldn't be enough to turn the tide. Therefore, I must wait. The ordinary foreign races fighting for benefits against the 5 great royal tribes might endure it in the early stages, but when their interests are carved up to an unbearable degree, an opportunity will naturally present itself. Stepping down into the cargo hold, I stand before the intermediate lathe, where 3 freshly manufactured ballistic missiles quietly lie. My eyes are chillingly calm. Every war between races comes with sacrifice and bloodshed. The creatures swept into that vortex will all have their own missions. Soldiers fight soldiers, generals fight generals. Each side has its leaders, its secret weapons. For ordinary survivors, their enemies are the wandering sea foreign races that just received a power boost. For the official fleets, their opponents are the elite foreign races organized into armies. As for me, my true enemies are the false gods, entities that ordinary people could never even begin to imagine. Out at sea, after a night of raging storms, the sun of March 8th still slowly peaks over the horizon. Today is the 6th day since the great flood of the wasteland erupted. No matter how the creatures on land or beneath the sea resist, the wheel of time silently rolls forward. Starting at 6 a.m., when the first survivors discover a small group of foreign races has regained their strength, humanity's high-level shelters immediately issue a new announcement. Soon after, just like yesterday, the entire wasteland is in an uproar again. The only difference is that this time, major shelters like Longqi, Polar Bear, and Dawn Sword are no longer hiding it. They publicly announce it to the whole world. On the global chat board, a barrage of messages is sent out simultaneously. No one on this ocean can escape this battle. This is the battle that will decide the survival and fate of all humanity. Either we survive and rebuild a new home together on this wasteland, or we fight to the last drop of blood out on the open sea against those foreign races. Bring one last shred of hope for the children yet to be born, before humanity is completely wiped out. The choice lies in the hands of every survivor. To fight or not, it's up to you. And from this declaration addressed to all human compatriots, everyone is stunned to discover an unprecedented truth. The nations on earth that were once like fire and water have now united. The authors of the letter no longer sign off by country as before, but with an entirely new name, the Command Center for the Human Destiny Community. What's the point of running anymore? Damn it, the ocean is so vast, and the foreign races swim like fish. How are we supposed to hide? Today, even if I, Wang Jieja, have to die out at sea, or jump from right here, I'm going to fight them to the death. Damn those foreign races. You will definitely be punished by God for what you've done. I've been hiding for so many days, I don't even want to hide anymore. Is there even a place for the living in this damn wasteland? Even if we manage to flee to the new continent, won't they just chase us? Won't we just have to keep fighting? Let's just fight it out right now and settle this once and for all. Where's Godsu? Where's our Godsu? Why hasn't he stepped in to wipe out these foreign races yet? Godsu this, Godsu that. Is Godsu your dad or your grandpa? You're always howling like a beaten dog. The ocean is so huge, the wasteland is so vast, and it's only been 2 months, yet you're already begging for a god to save your life. If you give up on yourself, even a god can't save you. I'm not fighting. I want to go home. I want to go back to Earth. I don't want to die. I really don't want to die. Why do humans have to keep fighting the foreign races? Why can't we live in peace? In the middle of a natural disaster like this, we're still frantically slaughtering each other, trembling in fear before the fight even starts. I'm telling you seriously, I don't believe these foreign races would actually eat people. Who knows? Maybe dying just means going back to Earth or getting transferred to the next game. If it's a game, there's respawning. You cowards who don't want to fight are ridiculous. Right now, they are the ones who want to fight us, get it? Yesterday, when we were killing the foreign races, everyone was fighting for a peace like starving dogs. Now that there's no benefit, you want to back out? Fight. Why wouldn't we fight? We laid the groundwork yesterday. So what if the foreign races got stronger? Didn't we get stronger too? We have ships. We have people. We can crush them with sheer numbers alone. From 6:30 a.m., after the declaration to compatriots was broadcast, in less than half an hour, the global chat channel practically explodes. People demanding surrender, people begging for peace, people wanting to fight, people wanting to flee, people calling for God's sue, people crying to go back to Earth. Countless opinions clash like a storm, making the screen scroll endlessly. But no matter how much they argue, when the time hits 8 a.m., a flood of news about foreign races attacking survivors inundates the chat channel. At this moment, many people are stunned to realize that the massive numbers humanity once took pride in have now become a fatal weakness. If you choose to surrender, the game's content filtering mechanism will make it so you only see calls for surrender. You want to flee? Fine. But you'll only read posts teaching each other how to hide and escape. And if you choose to fight to the bitter end, you'll only see people like yourself, screaming for blood and battle just like you. In the echo chamber created by the game, everyone can only see what they want to see and can only remain steadfast in their initial choice. Within an hour and a half, humanity's various factions have absolutely no chance of uniting into a common front. No consensus, let alone solidarity. But for the foreign races, it's different. Even though their numbers are also incredibly massive, only the tribe leaders have the right to enter the chat channel to communicate and issue directives. This mechanism was once considered a limitation on the foreign race's thinking, but when war breaks out, it creates a terrifying capacity for strategic unity. The foreign races on land are still being harassed by the golden-haired Lion King. Even though they've agreed on war, they're still hesitating over who to attack first, how to attack, and whether they should wait for the 5 Great Royal Tribes plan. But the sea foreign races, harboring deep-seated hatred, don't hesitate for a single second. Within just 10 minutes of regaining their strength, they reach a unanimous decision: attack humanity. They must attack humanity, because weak humans are the fastest way for them to recover the strength they lost yesterday. As long as they kill enough people before the land foreign races can react, when the great war between sea and land breaks out, they will hold the upper hand. In the entire history of warfare on Earth, there has never been a page describing a war as frantic and bizarre as this. This is a battle involving over 7 billion creatures. From any angle, this is the largest scale battle humanity could possibly mobilize in their remaining time surviving on this deadly land. After this battle, regardless of victory or defeat, there will never be another war of such terrifying scale. 8 a.m. Today's tsunami is no longer delayed like the past few days, but operates right on schedule. An hour and a half of turbulence, an hour and a half of calm. This very mechanism creates an unprecedentedly bizarre scene. When the tsunami is calm, humans and foreign races go mad, desperately charging at each other. When the tsunami churns, the two sides act as if they have an unspoken pact, separated by a wall of waves, quietly recovering their stamina. From 8 a.m., the battle drags on until 1 p.m. When the rest period arrives, the survivors out at sea breathe a sigh of relief, sprawling out on the decks, eating dry rations while scrambling to recover their strength. But what no one expected is that, as half an hour of rest passes, those in the faction wanting to flee or surrender suddenly realize their comrades are disappearing. Even with the content filtering system still active, the scrolling speed of the global chat board slows down noticeably. Director Long: according to the battle statistics so far, humanity's fighting spirit remains very resilient. In the past 2 engagements, our casualty rate has held at 13%. The foreign races have also suffered over 4% in losses. If we continue at this pace, by the end of today, as long as we accept a casualty rate of around 25%, we'll have enough strength to repel the foreign race's most ferocious counterattack. In a war of tens of billions of creatures, individual strength means nothing. Even the largest and strongest shelters, when placed in the torrential flow of war information, are just like grains of sand in a desert, instantly swept away without a trace. It's clear. Right now, the only 3 things they can do are collect data, coordinate events, and warn nearby fleets. 13%. Which areas suffered the heaviest losses? Long Ongwa asks sternly, his eyes darkening. Looking at the number alone, it isn't large. In the first 2 engagements, maintaining this rate is already an incredibly outstanding achievement. But if you apply it to the overall scale, that's 550 million people. In just 2 hours, over 500 million people have fallen in this battle. Whether they chose to fight, flee, or surrender, the truth is they are dead. And throughout today, humanity will have to continue sacrificing on a similar scale, pushing toward the figure of 1.3 billion people to close out this phase of the war. Compared to the initial prediction of a 45% casualty rate, this number is nearly half as low. But that still doesn't stop Long Ongwa's body from trembling after he speaks. The heaviest losses are in War Zone 7, the reporter replies. News from Dawn's Sword indicates that there are too many magic-using foreign races in this area. Our forces lost nearly 20% of their numbers before they could even get close. They are also very cunning. They always keep their distance, using guerrilla tactics, refusing to engage in close combat. He swallows hard, then continues. Currently, Dawn's Sword has decided to scatter their forces to reduce casualties. It's expected that losses in the next 2 attacks will drop by over 50%, but the chance of eliminating the enemy is practically zero. They need reinforcements from other war zones. The pressure from Long Ongwa's gaze makes the reporter's hands tremble slightly. But everyone standing here is a talent filtered from Earth. Just a few seconds later, he regains his composure. Reinforcements? Right now, everyone is struggling just to fend for themselves. Where would we even find people to help? Long Ongwa frowns. What about War Zone 5? Didn't Polar Bear bring a lot of heavy weapons? What's the current situation? War Zone 5's losses are significantly lower, currently at only 6%. Polar Bear's forces have drawn most of the foreign race's firepower in this area, creating an opportunity for outside forces to flank them from 2 directions. The foreign races have suffered nearly 5% losses here. It's an absolute disaster for them. This area was supposed to be the most dangerous since it's surrounded from 5 directions, but thanks to War Zone 3 suddenly launching a fierce counterattack, the foreign races from other directions were drawn away, drastically reducing the pressure on War Zone 5. Long Ongwa freezes. War Zone 3 launched a fierce counterattack? In the original plan, War Zone 5 was supposed to be the most dangerous place in the entire ocean. War Zone 3, in particular, was always considered the biggest threat because it didn't have a major shelter holding the line. But now, that's right, Director Long. War Zone 3 currently has a lower mortality rate than even War Zones 11 and 12 in the shallow waters, only about 2%. Meanwhile, their enemy kill rate has reached 6%, the highest across the entire front. Precisely because they counterattacked so frantically, they drew the majority of the foreign races from War Zones 2 and 6 toward them, causing casualties in those 2 zones to drop rapidly. After speaking, the reporter hands Long Ongwa the battle reports for War Zone 3. Just skimming through a few lines, a familiar yet unfamiliar name suddenly pops into his head. Excellent. Long Ongwa taps his hand lightly on the table. I didn't expect the tundra to have such strength. Pass down the order. Instruct War Zones 2 and 6 to do everything in their power to pin down the foreign races and create an opening for them to attack. To win a war, winning on the main front isn't enough. Especially when the weak fight the strong, everything will be decided outside the main theater. In wars where the weak resist the strong, what determines victory or defeat isn't absolute power, but a miracle. For humanity right now, as long as a miracle appears, it can ignite a spark that will set this entire desolate ocean ablaze. And for someone systematically trained and possessing superior strategic thinking like Long Ongwa, he understands perfectly well that War Zone 3 has the potential to become that first spark. It's just missing a bit of tinder or a timely eastern wind. At the same time, on the deck of the tundra, captains of all ranks stand in a row, taking turns observing the battlefield through binoculars. Director Liu, the foreign races have us completely surrounded. Holding out like this is no different from waiting to die. Let's just attack. That's right. Our firepower is strong. Those foreign races won't be able to stop us. The longer we wait, the more troops they'll bring in. By then, with no reinforcements, it'll be suicide. Director Liu, are we still waiting? Waiting this time doesn't make any sense. Thanks to the game's chat system, even while surrounded, they can issue orders quickly, coordinating tactics from attacking and retreating to sieging. But just glancing at the battlefield, almost everyone opposes staying put. In their eyes, the foreign races suffered heavy losses in the previous 2 waves and are now only surrounding them without daring to attack. If they don't charge now, It's practically incompetent command. But right then, Liu Yongyi loses his temper. Charge my ass. You guys eat your fill, get enough rest, and fight from the safety of the big ships. Have you seen what the brothers on the wooden rafts are going through? He turns and shouts, Zhang Long. Take the binoculars and look closely. If we charge right now, how many people on those rafts will survive? Then try calculating this. If we charge and get pursued, what price will we have to pay just to hold our formation? The moment the words drop, Zhang Long's expression instantly changes. He hurriedly grabs the binoculars to look, his face growing uglier by the second. In that moment, he understands why the foreign races were initially as ferocious as tigers and leopards, but in the second wave pretended to be indifferent, only circling their forces without truly engaging. If we charge now, our big ships will be fine, but of the 300,000 people on those wooden rafts, not even half will survive. More importantly, we'll completely lose the formation and defensive line we spent all day setting up. The foreign races have shown their hand. They're forcing us into a position where we either die right now or die slowly. How vicious. Even without ever stepping onto a battlefield, people from the information age all have a certain sensitivity to war. But this time, it's no longer a game or a simulation. This is a true life and death battle between humans and foreign races. After the first ferocious attack, the foreign races switched to hit-and-run tactics. Coupled with the effects of the sixth-day tsunami, the morale and stamina of the warriors on the wooden rafts have been pushed to the point of exhaustion. Relying on the buff from the Friend of the Ocean title, they can only recover enough stamina during the 1.5-hour rest period to resist the next wave. But if they launch a counterattack right now, they won't even make it a few kilometers before collapsing from exhaustion, losing all combat capability. When that happens, the foreign races will just need to feint an attack and retreat, and the entire defensive line that took a whole day to build will vanish into thin air. Warzone 3, which is currently holding a stalemate, will completely collapse, triggering a domino effect across the entire front. And the person who makes that decision will become a sinner in human history. But right then, another problem arises. Director Liu, if we don't fight, how is it any different from waiting to die? The foreign races only have 50,000 right now. But if we wait a bit longer and they bring in 200,000 or 300,000, matching our numbers, then what? Unless we have infinite ammo, we're going to die sooner or later anyway. As for reinforcements, the entire ocean is fighting right now. Who has the time to come save us? As soon as Lu Ning finishes speaking, the others all nod in agreement. But surprisingly, this time, Liu Yongyi doesn't argue back. On the contrary, a flicker of anticipation flashes across his face. He nods, then shakes his head. Waiting any longer really is just waiting to die. But did I ever say we don't have reinforcements? Hearing this, everyone freezes and looks at each other, their eyes filled with nothing but doubt. Reinforcements at a time like this? You've got to be kidding. Unless they managed to call Godsu over. But thinking about it, the Tundra fleet only has 350,000 people. Do they even have the qualifications to beg a god for help? Glancing around the deck, I see countless people still bustling about. Even the women have donned armor and rushed to the front lines. No one says another word, only smiling bitterly in silence. Well played, Liu Yongyi. This empty promise is really hard to swallow. Chan, go help everyone cook. I can handle these ingredients. Be careful, don't get hurt. Oh come on, Sister Shun. You just think I'm too slow, don't you? I'm someone with a level 4 title, you know? My stamina is super good. On the second deck of the ship, about 60 women are busy wrestling with the pile of materials in front of them. Seeing Su Chan's clumsy yet determined demeanor, Shunka shakes her head, her eyes full of doting reproach, but ultimately says nothing more. The situation right now is very clear. Although the Tundra fleet's firepower is strong, its fatal weakness lies in the lack of a stable ammunition supply chain. The foreign races are growing in number, while the ammo depot is depleting by the minute. This imbalance will reach its limits sooner or later. When the ammo runs out, if humanity wants to keep fighting at sea, their only option is to revert to the most primitive weapons. However, given the current defense needs, both bows and crossbows are terrifyingly scarce. One more arrow means one more dead foreign race, one more life saved. Therefore, to prepare early, Aside from those directly fighting or handling logistics, the entire remaining workforce has been assigned to the ammo crafting team. Good thing the fish in the sea got so scared they all ran away. Otherwise, our little Chan would definitely control a whole school of fish to fight the foreign races. Exactly. These foreign races don't know their place. They actually dare to target our fleet? With Director Liu here, keep dreaming. I saw the situation for humanity on the World Channel is really bad right now. With someone starting the conversation, the others also chat a bit while they work. War has broken out. As people born and raised in peacetime, most of the women have never truly grasped just how brutal war can be. Faced with casualty numbers in the millions and billions, the only emotion they can grasp is fear. Do you guys think Godsu will come save us this time? The foreign races are getting way too arrogant. They must have forgotten the miserable end of that guy. I mean, that divine dog last time. The ocean is so vast. How could Godsu possibly get here? We're just insignificant little lives. Even if we die, no one will probably care. True. I just hope Godsu can rebuild homes on the new continent, so my son will have a place to stay in the future. That's all I ask for. With things this disastrous, even Godsu is probably struggling to fend for himself. Humanity's foundation in this wasteland is just too weak. You only have to worry about your son. I have to worry about my daughter. She's only 5. What can she even do over here? She can barely walk steady. In the apocalypse, a single sentence is enough to drag everyone into negative emotions, depression, and despair. Outside, the warriors' nerves are still weighed down by the battle, leaving them no time to think that far ahead. But for the women inside the ship, worry and anxiety wrap tightly around them like crashing waves. Fortunately, this time, before Shunku even needs to speak up to boost morale, Su-chan raises her unfinished crossbow high, her childish yet resolute voice ringing out. Godsu will definitely come save us. Such a naive rallying cry makes the entire cabin burst into laughter. The gloomy atmosphere that had just risen is instantly dispelled. But before the laughter can even fade, the entire tundra suddenly shakes violently, as if an earthquake is happening right beneath their feet. Immediately after, before anyone can react, the entire lighting system goes out. 3 muffled explosions ring out like thunderclaps right next to their ears. Boom. The ship shudders violently, as if bombs went off right under its hull. From the initial slight tremors, the ship tilts sharply by nearly 50 degrees. The entire vessel sways wildly. A few women who had just picked up materials, unable to brace themselves in time, are hurled against the bulkhead like sacks of potatoes, hitting it with a sickening thud. In that instant, the smooth arrow shafts in their hands are no longer weapons to kill the enemy, but turn into the scythe of the grim reaper claiming their own lives. In the blink of an eye, one woman has an arrow shaft pierce straight through her neck. Fresh blood sprays out like a geyser, splattering all over the people around her. Stay calm. Don't panic. Brace yourselves. Store all arrows, crossbows, and sharp objects into your storage space. Our ship is very sturdy. Don't panic. Keep it together. In the chaotic darkness, explosions continue to batter the ship's hull. Shunku springs up immediately, shouting loudly to reassure everyone. But almost at the same time, a second wave of explosions strikes the hull, even more violent than the first. The wooden tundra tilts sharply to one side, nearly 60 degrees, almost capsizing. If it weren't for the game buff granting the tundra excellent quality, along with a special stabilization effect, this tilt alone would have torn the ship apart long ago. Watch them for me. I'm going out to check the situation. Don't worry, I've got this. Shinku pulls a handgun from her storage space, quickly unbuckles her safety harness, and whispers to Su-chan beside her. Receiving a firm nod, under everyone's gaze, she slips into the darkness like a hunting leopard. Brace yourselves. Stay calm. Don't waste ammo. Only shoot when you see the enemy. Protect your weapons. Safety off. Absolutely do not shoot our own people. Protect the gun in your hands. Safety off. Absolutely do not shoot our own people. Our ship isn't capsizing, and it's not breached. I can see the stats on the control panel. Don't panic, everyone. We will definitely hold out. Inside the cabin, it's pitch black. But for someone who knows every nook and cranny of the tundra like Shinku, she could navigate it perfectly, even blindfolded. Just as she steps onto the stairs leading to the main deck, she hears Liu Yongyi's commanding voice booming over the PA system. The moment she sets foot on the deck, just a quick glance around is enough for her to instantly understand what's happening. The tundra is under attack. To be precise, it's a decapitation strike. 2 large-scale attacks, interspersed with countless hit-and-run skirmishes, finally led the foreign races to discover an undeniable truth. Only the tundra has the strongest firepower. As long as they eliminate the tundra, nearly 80% of humanity's resistance will be snuffed out. And so, they put their plan into action. It's unclear how, but the foreign races bypassed all the underwater sentries, silently approached the tundra's hull, and launched a surprise attack. Shinku quickly takes some men down to check the ship's bottom. This is a private message from Liu Yongyi. He clearly saw her appear on the deck. Shinku immediately replies, spinning around and sprinting straight toward the stern. Along the way, she points out 3 more warriors. All of them grab their weapons and dive into the sea. Unlike the Hope, which has a modern deployment system, sailing warships in the wasteland can only use ropes to scale down the hull into the water, both convenient and safe. In just a few minutes, the 4 of them reach the water's surface. And the moment they touch the water, my heart turns ice cold. Right in the middle of the tundra's lower hull, a hole the size of a pre-apocalypse car has appeared. Countless wooden splinters are still bobbing around it. As the second person on the ship to possess a level 4 title, Shunku instantly activates her underwater breathing skill and darts forward to inspect the breach up close. After carefully observing every detail, she finally breathes a sigh of relief, turning back to signal the 3 behind her. The ship is fine. It needs immediate repairs. Ever since the concept of watertight bulkheads was invented, the safety of seagoing vessels has been elevated to a whole new level. Take the Titanic, for example. That unsinkable ship had 16 watertight compartments. Even with 4 compartments breached, it didn't sink immediately. As for the Tundra, under the game's buff effect, it has 13 sealed compartments. As long as at least 4 compartments remain intact, it can still stay afloat. The current breach has only destroyed about 1.5 compartments. That means the Tundra still has fight left in it. Shinku to Director Liu. The bottom hull is breached by about 1.5 compartments. I need half an hour to repair it. We absolutely cannot let the foreign races hit the bottom of the ship again, or the risk of sinking is real. Also, I suspect an inside job, because there are traces of artificial explosives at the blast site. She has just opened the control panel to report and hasn't even grabbed her repair tools yet, when in an unconscious moment, her eyes sweep over a warrior in the distance and instantly notice something wrong. As the person in charge of communications and overall internal management, Shunku remembers the face of every single soldier. But this person, she has never seen him before. Their eyes meet, and the very next second, the guy turns and flees. He knows he's been spotted. Unfortunately for him, he underestimated someone with a level 4 title underwater. One side has to swim and hold their breath, while Shunku is like a fish in water. In less than 20 seconds, the distance between them is close to under 3 meters. Without a moment's hesitation, she reaches into her storage space, pulls out a short blade, and slashes straight at his leg. Even underwater, the strike packs enough power to cut deep to the bone. Blood blooms out in a cloud. But before Shunku can close in to capture him alive, a strange sound pierces through the seawater, faintly echoing in her ears. The sound is very weak, very muffled, so much so that only someone with a level 4 title could hear it. But in that exact moment, my heart feels like it's being squeezed. The foreign races, taking advantage of the chaos, have launched their all-out assault. In war, any underestimation of the enemy must be paid for with a bloody and agonizing death. Liu Yongyi has understood this perfectly from the very beginning. But the others didn't. From the warriors on the wooden rafts, to the captains of the sand ships, and even a few captains of the large ships. It wasn't until today, paying with the lives of tens of thousands of people, that they finally learned that lesson. How many people? Sitting on the deck of the Tundra, which has been dyed red with blood like hell itself, Liu Yongyi presses his hand against the still bleeding wound on his shoulder. His eyes, sharp as knives, sweep across the area where foreign race corpses lie scattered. In that moment, he unconsciously thinks of his old friend, Old Spark. He even wonders, if Spark were still alive right now, would the fleet have suffered such a tragedy today? Director Liu, the casualty rate is over 50%. The data is still being tallied. We have 7 large ships left, 18 small ships, wooden rafts, 22 left. Slumping onto the deck, Zhang Long is covered in injuries, especially a horrifying wound on his leg. He had to use a game item to stop the bleeding just to keep his life. Even so, every sentence he speaks seems to cost him half his life. Those numbers are enough to make anyone who hears them shudder. A casualty rate of over 50% means that out of the Tundra fleet's 400,000 people, after just one battle, over 200,000 are forever resting at the bottom of the sea. The large ships went from over 15 down to 7. Nearly 40 small ships were sunk, setting the record for the heaviest losses in history. How much ammo do we have left? This is a question Liu Yongyi has always avoided, not wanting anyone to know the actual situation. But now, it seems he has come to terms with something, turning his head to ask the guard behind him directly. Unfortunately, the person who used to always answer immediately doesn't reply this time. He turns his head back, and in that moment, he closes his eyes. Slashed twice by the foreign races, he didn't shed a tear. Pierced through the shoulder, he didn't utter a groan. With not a single intact spot left on his body, he still forced himself to stand tall. But right now, 2 streams of tears mixed with blood and mud silently slide down his cheeks. Behind him is a dead man, covered in blood, his body riddled with wounds. Dead, yet still gripping his knife tightly. Dead, yet still staring wide-eyed straight ahead. Dead, yet still refusing to use his last bullet to end the pain. He died in agony, a raw, excruciating death. Feeling the pain surging from the very bottom of Liu Yongyi's heart, everyone still alive on the deck falls silent. Amidst the acrid stench of gunpowder, each person sitting there is like a lone wild beast, saying nothing, just quietly licking the wounds on their own bodies. Like soldiers suffering from PTSD after a war, those who survive this battle are all defeated. But, in this world, there are always exceptions. Suddenly, a clear voice rings out behind Liu Yongyi, cutting through the dead silence. Machine gun ammo is depleted. Assault rifles have 1,800 rounds left. Pistols have 9,300 rounds left. Explosives, 14 packs left. 4 3 kilograms packs, 2 5 kilograms packs, 1 10 kilograms pack, and the remaining 7 are 1 kilogram. Crossbows have 6,200 bolts left. Bows have 3,910 arrows. Spears, 300 left. Knives, 120 blades. Long pole arms, 220 shafts. People, 322 left. Amidst the crackling of burning wood and the faint groans echoing from the ship's hold, that voice is like a stream of cool water, pouring straight into everyone's dried-up minds. Almost instantly, anyone who still has the strength to lift their head turns in unison to look toward the source of the sound. And in their line of sight, the main cabin door, which had been completely blocked by collapsed wood, is now being lifted. At first, it's just one arm reaching out, lifting it enough to create a small gap. Then, over a dozen other arms squeeze in, joining forces to lift the door completely. Next, 5 spears thrust through the gap simultaneously, using leverage to pry the massive pile of wood aside. The progress is slow, but accumulating bit by bit, the heavy timber is finally pushed away, revealing a gap just large enough for a person to squeeze through. From inside, a youthful face appears, her eyes strangely resolute. Her hand tightly grips a blade completely disproportionate to her petite frame. Despite the nauseating stench of blood on the deck, she steps out without hesitation. Then, behind her, familiar figures emerge one after another. In less than a minute, the deck that seemed dead silent is once again brimming with life. All the people who hadn't had time to join the fight due to the sudden ambush have now grabbed their weapons and stepped out of the cabin. Right at the moment the fleet stands on the brink of life and death, despite the fear still etched on their faces, despite their eyes still trembling with panic. As long as they can still stand here, that's enough. Good, good, good. 3 consecutive shouts ring out. Liu Yongyi's voice is even choked with emotion. I declare the establishment of the Tundra Emergency Response Team. First Captain, Kong Yangwu. Vice Captains, Yang Chan, Deng Qi, Captain Kong Yingwu, lead Squad 1. Immediately head to the other ships to rescue survivors, restore contact with the raft fleet, and rebuild the defensive line. Vice Captain Yang Chan, lead Squad 2. Disregard everything else and put all your effort into treating the wounded. Vice Captain Deng Chi, lead Squad 3. Take materials down to the bottom of the ship and repair the Tundra at all costs. The Tundra is not allowed to sink. The 1,300 people quickly divide into 3 squads, executing their orders in an orderly and decisive manner. Liu Yongyi no longer stubbornly refuses when the medical team insists on treating him first. He glances at the time. 6:08 p.m. According to Wasteland time, there are less than 6 hours left before the strongest reinforcements arrive. He knows very well that as long as he remains standing, this fleet still has hope. They still have a chance to wait for true reinforcements. But what he wants to know even more is, at this moment when humanity is fighting to the bitter end, how many stubborn foreign races still dare to charge up and risk their lives against them? Brothers, is anyone still alive? Yell out. We're here to save you. I'm here. Our ship still has over 100 people. We're trapped. Please save us. Hang on. We're coming right now. Each large ship usually carries over 500 people. Even though they've been sunk, thanks to their sturdy internal structures, hundreds of survivors are still trapped inside. In just half an hour, under smooth coordination, the number of rescued people rises to 1,500. The more people there are, the higher the efficiency. Before the next tsunami hits, all the large ships and half of the small ships have been fully searched and rescued. As for the rest, no one gives up. While preparing anti-tsunami measures, they knock on every piece of floating wood, hoping to find more survivors. At the same time, the warriors on the wooden rafts aren't idle either. They gather floating chests on the sea to bolster their strength, while also tallying the results of the recent battle. From the Tundra fleet that once had 398,000 people, only 167,000 survivors remain. 230,000 people are forever resting at the bottom of the sea. Casualty rate, 57%. While the average casualty rate across the entire battlefield is only 21.3%, this 57% figure is enough to send chills down anyone's spine. Fortunately, in exchange, the foreign races paid an equally heavy price. They brought 100,000 troops to sneak attack the Tundra, but after this battle, they lost 60,000. Their loss rate is even higher than humanity's. This painful blow makes them too afraid to take any more risks. Thus, humanity gains another precious hour and a half before the tsunami hits to rebuild a new defensive line. 7:42 p.m. Wasteland time. 18 minutes left until the tsunami. All the wounded on the Tundra have been treated. Thanks to some special game items, many who should have stepped through death's door were pulled back. Since the lower decks are still in chaos and haven't been repaired yet, everyone is crowded onto the main deck. And everyone sees the scene unfolding in the middle of the deck. A bloody interrogation. One of the traitor's arms has been chopped off, blood spraying everywhere. I'll ask you again. Who sent you? Olding Chiu. He surrendered to the foreign races. He's mixed in with their army right now. How many people? 325. Why did you attack the Tundra? Olding Chiu made a deal with the foreign races. He promised to help them take down the Tundra fleet. In exchange, they'd give this ship to us, along with everyone on board. He spills everything obediently, not daring to lie a single word. From how Tianlong colluded with the foreign races to every step of their coordination, every detail is crystal clear. Obviously, he isn't just a pawn, but one of the ringleaders. Throw him overboard. Throw him. Seeing that he has already passed out from blood loss, 2 warriors immediately drag him to the bow and throw him straight into the sea. Killing this kind of person just dirties your hands. Where he belongs is the bottom of the ocean, to forever keep company with the 230,000 wronged souls of the Tundra fleet. Prepare for battle. For hours left until the new day, the foreign races only have 40,000 left. We still have 170,000. Even if we have to crush them with sheer numbers, we cannot lose. If we can hold out for these 4 hours, we'll live to see reinforcements arrive. When that happens, no one will have to risk their lives anymore. Zhang Long, Lu Neng, each of you lead 20,000. The rest of you lead 10,000 each. The final group, I'll command them myself. Hold on for 2 more waves. At all costs, we have to survive 2 more waves. Looking at the bitter smiles on everyone's faces, Liu Yongyi didn't say anything else. He just nodded slowly, then turned and walked into the makeshift command room on the deck. He lied, and everyone who heard that order knew he was lying. In the captain's hearts, the so-called reinforcements that Director Liu mentioned were just a well-intentioned lie. A lie to give everyone the faith to survive, to keep fighting. No one wanted to argue, and no one wanted to expose it, because they knew very well that they desperately needed that lie to keep standing. But what no one expected was that the real lie was actually inside that makeshift command room, where a large map hung on the wall. On the map, countless tiny red dots were appearing more and more, multiplying at a frantic pace. And they were all converging toward the red cloud in the center. That map was the real reinforcement. The truth had proven it. This game that dragged all of humanity to this wasteland, forcing them to endure all kinds of natural disasters and catastrophes, was truly a downright bastard. More and more people were choosing to stop trusting it, actively keeping their distance. And that was an absolutely correct decision. Player Su-Mo, it has been detected that the number of deceased creatures in the wasteland has exceeded the predicted threshold. The game is initiating a version upgrade. Please wait patiently. During the upgrade process, except for the storage space and the regional chat channel, all other game features will be temporarily disabled. Current upgrade progress, 0.01%. Estimated time remaining, 4 hours and 59 minutes. Looking at the machine tool still continuously spitting out bullets, and then at the game panel that was working just minutes ago, but now suddenly popped up an upgrade notice, I froze for a moment. My hand, which was about to grab the bullets for trading, suddenly clenched. The first time the game upgraded was when the death toll during the disaster exceeded the tolerance limit of the novices, leading to the 1.0 update. The second time was because there were too many survivors, and their strength far exceeded expectations, so the game shifted to the 2.0 update, the ocean version. But this time was different. After a day of fierce fighting, even though humanity's casualty rate was only over 20%, the game directly entered its third upgrade. Judging by the current situation, once the upgrade begins, both humans and foreign races will completely lose connection with the outside world. Every sea zone, every war zone, will turn into an isolated island in the vast ocean. Some people think this is the game's way of maintaining a fair playing field for both sides, cutting off any possibility of calling for reinforcements. Others believe that after this upgrade, humanity's situation will undergo an earth-shattering change. But no matter what, with the battlefield completely divided like this, the next 5 hours will undoubtedly be the bloodiest period of the entire war. Good thing I managed to send over 50,000 machine gun bullets and 50,000 rifle bullets before the game upgraded. Based on the Tundra Fleet's current situation, holding out for a few hours shouldn't be too hard. Gong, how far is the distance from our location to the coordinates? While pressing the production button on the machine tool, I tapped my Bluetooth earpiece, walking briskly onto the deck and giving the order. After the Tundra Fleet's surprise attack ended, Liu Yongyi immediately contacted me. In just 3 minutes, he summarized the entire perilous combat situation. Hearing that, I didn't waste a single second and immediately mobilized ammunition from the village as reinforcements. At the same time, after paying a hefty price to purchase raw materials, the workers on the Hope also started speeding up, using the machine tools to produce bullets. The only shame was that the game's update came too suddenly, leaving 20,000 newly produced bullets unable to be transferred in time. Respected Captain Su-Mo, the current time is March 8th, 20 hours 14 minutes and 3 seconds. The Hope is currently 613.8 kilometers away from the coordinates in a straight line. Current speed, 65.98 knots, equivalent to 122 kilometers per hour. Based on current speed fluctuations, the estimated time of arrival is March 9th, 1 hour 21 minutes and 42 seconds. Wishing you a pleasant journey. In the middle of the vast ocean, the Hope's flag fluttered in the wind, radiating a brilliant orange light. The high speed of nearly 120 kilometers per hour made the beam of light ahead almost seamless. From a distance, the entire ship looked like a ribbon of light tearing through the wind in the night sea. Once it entered full power mode, Unless Gongong's life sensor detected a target that needed to be avoided, the Hope wouldn't dodge anyone, whether it was an aquatic foreign race or a terrestrial one. Under that massive impact force, any creature daring to block its path would be crushed in the blink of an eye. The deeper it advanced into the sea, the fiercer the waves became. For ordinary ships, running at high speed in these conditions was no different from suicide. But the Hope was different. Under the effect of the wave-breaker attribute, its speed not only didn't decrease, but actually increased bit by bit. As of this moment, the acceleration effect had exceeded 45%. And if the current wave intensity was maintained, by the time it entered War Zone 3, the acceleration effect would hit a record-breaking 70%. At that point, with a mass of over 4,000 tons, the Hope's top speed would surpass the 140 kilometers per hour mark, double that of a green train. The tsunami will last for about an hour and a half. By 9:30, the distance between me and the Tundra fleet will drop below 450 kilometers. If the waves dissipate, the Hope will be forced to dive underwater, and its cruising speed will drop to 55 knots per hour. That means, standing on the deck, facing the howling sea breeze despite being protected by the Hope's flag, I quickly calculated in my head. Based on the radar's scanning range and the attack range of the rockets, as long as the Hope enters a 191-kilometer radius from the fleet, the danger will be instantly neutralized. By 11 o'clock, the ship will enter the 300-kilometer range. With the speed boost from the wavebreaker buff, the last 100 kilometers will only take about 40 minutes. As long as the Tundra fleet holds out until 11:40 before the new day begins, the entire crisis will be resolved. Recalculating the time, it's already 8:20 p.m. By the time the tsunami ends and conditions are suitable for combat again, it'll be 9:30. At that point, even if the foreign races launch an attack, both sides will only have time for exactly one round of fighting before the Hope arrives. An hour and a half, and they have over 100,000 bullets in hand. Unless those foreign races are entirely suicidal, there's no way they can break through the firepower perimeter the fleet has set up. Stay calm. My sister already has a level 4 title. Even if the foreign races really have some trick up their sleeves to strike, relying on the special ability of that title, she can still escape by jumping into the water. My only worry is that this update cuts off all communication between everyone. I just hope it doesn't force those old geezers from the 5 great royal clans to jump the gun too early. Otherwise, it'll be hard to time the outbreak of the battle perfectly. Looking up at the pitch-black night sky, the pale moonlight tinged with a blood-red hue, my gaze gradually darkened. I turned around and walked briskly toward the stern of the ship. After fumbling around for a bit, at an inconspicuous spot, I gently pressed a pitch-black button. Instantly, the previously sealed deck began to transform. The clanking sound of mechanical gears meshing rang out, and within half a minute, the entire deck surface from before had vanished. In its place, a series of block-shaped devices rose from the gaps. Unlike the devastating main cannon at the bow, which looked so imposing it was suffocating, these block-shaped devices didn't look like anything special at first glance. But as soon as I stepped forward, opened the control panel, and tapped a few simple commands, 12 tiny cone-shaped warheads popped up from inside one after another. Compared to the massive machinery, those conical warheads looked small and out of place. However, the H1 symbol engraved on their surface was enough to send shivers down the spine of anyone who knew what they were. If you don't come, fine. But if you dare to show up, don't even think about going back. I pressed a reserve ammo section on the control panel. Before my eyes, a line of text appeared clearly. 12H1 rockets, fully intact. Along with 5L, 3 missiles sitting neatly in the corner, each radiating an overwhelming murderous aura. I didn't make any further moves, but my eyes flared with an unconcealable, icy glint. Director Liu, are there really reinforcements? The ammo arrived right on time. A little later, and the trading system would have been locked. Yeah, that's 100,000 bullets. Director Liu, these reinforcements, could it be the higher-ups? I suggest we don't use this ammo right away when the foreign races attack later. Let's fire the crossbows first. Wait until they get close. Then give them a taste of surprise. I think that makes sense too. Now that the trading market is closed, we can't even buy materials to make arrows. We have to save whatever ammo we have. Hearing you say that makes my heart ache. Earlier, we were firing wildly from a distance. The foreign races hadn't even gotten close, and we were already pouring fire on them. What a waste of bullets. Whether it was a war on civilized Earth or in this man-eating wasteland, weapons were always the most effective tranquilizer. Just half an hour ago, all the captains were weighed down by heavy anxiety. Everyone was forcing themselves to command the battle, but the despair on their faces couldn't be hidden. And then, in an instant, when Shunka stood on the deck and pointed straight at the empty space in front of her, everyone was stunned. 50 crates of ammo. 100,000 bullets. What kind of concept was that? If they fired from a distance before the foreign races approached, this ammo was enough to kill at least 30,000 of them. But if they waited for them to close in before counterattacking, the suppressive firepower from the bullets would create the perfect counterattack conditions for the fighters on the rafts, wiping out at least over 40,000. In other words, if those foreign races lurking offshore still dared to attack after the tsunami ended, then as long as the fleet coordinated perfectly just once, they would be wiped out on the spot. Not only would the tide of the battle change, but more importantly, the captains who had suspected Liu Yongyi of lying also began to waver. Before, when he said there were reinforcements, everyone thought it was just a self-comforting lie. In their eyes, winning this battle was almost impossible. The foreign races were as numerous as locusts. They could never kill them all. But now it was different. If the reinforcements were real, then this endless battle would turn into a timed defense. As long as they held out until the designated time, the winners would be them. For those standing on the brink of despair, that shift was no different from a shot of adrenaline. The negative emotions quickly vanished, replaced by a fragile yet blindingly bright spark called hope. However, while everyone was still excitedly discussing tactics, before they could even agree on a plan, a voice like a bolt from the blue suddenly rang out from the nearby command room, leaving everyone dead silent. There's no time. Everyone, prepare immediately. We have to counterattack. Carve a bloody path. Carve a bloody path. The moment Liu Yongyi's voice rang out, everyone froze, thinking they had misheard. But when they turned to see the exact same shocked expressions on the faces of those next to them, they realized he had actually said those words. Half a day ago, they were the first ones to suggest counterattacking to carve a path. But before they could even execute it, Liu Yongyi, as the commander, strictly rejected it, even having Zhang Long step up to analyze the situation. At that time, Zhang Long's argument was convincing enough to persuade everyone, making them decisively abandon the idea of risking their lives and focus on defense. Yet now, after half a day of fighting, losing over 200,000 people and burning through hundreds of thousands of bullets just to hold the defensive line, Liu Yongyi suddenly demanded a counterattack to carve a path. Was he possessed by a foreign race or something? No way. I object. Charging out now is no different from throwing our lives away. It's pitch black out there. We won't even be able to tell friend from foe. How are we supposed to fight? Liu Yongyi, don't be selfish. You have over 100,000 people relying on you. I absolutely refuse. If I'm going to die, I'll die right here in this defensive line. At least then I'll accept it. At a time like this, when we have ammo, a defensive line, and hope, counterattacking to carve a path is obviously the stupidest choice. The captains immediately erupted into a fierce argument, yelling as they dragged each other toward the makeshift command room, determined to demand an explanation. They even wanted to see with their own eyes if Liu Yongyi was being mind-controlled. However, when they pulled back the curtain and walked in, when their eyes landed on the map hanging behind Liu Yongyi, all the questions they had prepared choked in their throats. They even forgot why they had stormed in there in the first place. Director Liu, what is this? Hearing the terrified gasps behind him, Liu Yongyi still didn't turn around. His intense gaze was glued to the map, where the red cloud representing the foreign races was swelling by the minute. Its size was already equal to the cloud representing the Tundra fleet. In just the 10 minutes since the game started updating, the volume of the foreign race cluster had increased by over 35%. Based on the current scale of their 180,000-strong fleet, the number of foreign races surrounding them had reached at least 90,000. But that wasn't all. Surrounding that red cluster, countless tiny red dots were still swarming in. At this rate, in just 20 more minutes, when the tsunami subsided, The number of foreign races wouldn't just recover. It would far exceed the scale of the previous all-out assault. By then, without abundant ammo, without 400,000 people fighting back simultaneously, the current defensive line had less than 40% of its original effectiveness. The foreign races would crush everything like a hurricane sweeping away dead leaves. And by then, even if they wanted to run, it would be too late. Go. We have to carve a bloody path. Let the rafts retreat first. If we hesitate any longer, we're all dead. This time, the one who spoke wasn't Liu Yongyi, but Zhang Long, the man who had been closely monitoring the battlefield data from start to finish. While the others were still confused, unable to comprehend why the situation had suddenly taken such an irreversible turn, Zhang Long was already the first to react.